Hey friends, hope you're all doing well. We're doing okay too, just really tired since we've been working non-stop. We wanted to answer a question many of you ask: how does our publishing process work? Most of our audiobooks are first posted on Patreon as paid content. They stay behind a paywall for a few months. After that, they become free to access on Patreon forever. Then, a few weeks later, we upload them to other platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, X. Lately, our community hasn't been growing much, and we could really use your help. Please share our site in your Facebook groups, Discord servers, Reddit threads, Twitter, X, or with any friends who might be interested. Every little bit helps and we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for being with us and supporting what we do. You just want to beat up the Kuzunin, don't you? I knew it. Someone as wise as you would see through my plan instantly. Kleichi grinned. The third Hokage felt something was off, but he didn't dwell on it. After thinking it over, he nodded. That being said, you do have a point. Hitting Hidden Grass Village is indeed the best way to divert attention. We have enough justification for attacking the Kuzunin, so Onoki won't be suspicious. Of course, we need to choose the right timing. Kazekage, return to Minato and tell him that we will launch the attack on a cloudy day. Until then, they must remain hidden and wait. Kleichi didn't take long to make his decision. The small toad, Kazekage, glanced between Kleichi and the third Hokage, as if unsure whom to listen to. After hesitating for a moment, it asked, why wait for a cloudy day? Because in cloudy weather, we can unleash a powerful lightning-style jutsu. Onoki wouldn't dare engage us head-on. Kleichi explained briefly. He trusted that Minato would immediately understand his reasoning upon hearing this. The toad returned to Mount Myabaku. The third Hokage hadn't officially given the order yet, but since he had already agreed to the idea of attacking Hidden Grass Village. At this point, he had no reason to object. Everything was ready, all that remained was to wait for a cloudy day. Eastern Land of Grass. Minato Namikaze and his 11-man team were concealed in the dense forests. Including Minato, they had exactly 12 members, forming 3 elite squads. Among them, the weakest was Kakashi, who was already an elite Chunin, while the strongest included Jonin-level shinobi like Hiei Shirakumo and Shibuya Barame. Minato-senpai, should we summon the toad to get an update on the situation? Let's wait a little longer. Minato was concerned that if he summoned the toad back mid-briefing, they might miss crucial information. That would be a hassle. If only someone else could use the Flying Thunder God as well. He thought to himself. After a long wait, he finally performed the summoning jutsu again, calling back Kazekage. How did it go? A silver-haired guy said you should wait for a cloudy day. He'll use a powerful lightning-style jutsu that will keep Onoki from engaging. Kazekage croaked. Cloudy weather? Minato's eyes flickered with thought. Did he also mention attacking Hidden Grass Village? Oh, right. I was just about to say that, Kazekage nodded repeatedly. Minato ignored the toad's rumblings, simply thanking it before sending it back to Mount Myabaku. Nearby, Kakashi appeared deep in thought. Kakashi, what's on your mind? I'm considering the powerful lightning-style jutsu it mentioned. If it requires a cloudy day, it's likely a jutsu that generates or guides natural lightning. Because of his dedication to kenjutsu training, Kakashi had been intensely studying lightning style, rapidly improving his understanding of it. It didn't take him long to piece together a rough idea. Soon, the Jonin around them also caught on. The Hokage already used this jutsu once against Onoki. It intimidated the Hidden Stones Village Inn. And Hidden Grass Village probably knows about it as well. So when a cloudy day arrives, everyone's attention will be drawn toward the western encampment. Minato's eyes lit up. That explained it. A cloudy day, this was the reason. Taking a deep breath, he turned to the others. Everyone understands the plan now. No objections. Hayashi, I may need your help later. I'm part of the team, I'll give it my all. Hayashi Hyuga nodded. While Shibuya Barame was an excellent scout, his insects needed to return to transmit information. By contrast, the Byakugan provided real-time surveillance and enemy positioning. Thus, Hayashi was the best eye for their squad. Now that Kleichi's plan was clear, the team felt much more at ease. Since a large-scale weather shift was visible to everyone, they wouldn't even need additional intelligence transmission. It was the perfect signal flare. Time passed day by day. Waiting for bad weather was an unpleasant experience, but as shinobi, patience was a necessity. Everyone knew how to suppress their restlessness. And then, finally, a week later, the right weather arrived. It was a rainy day. Kleichi didn't even need to guide it. Twisting lightning was already weaving through the sky. With this kind of weather, Onoki gazed up at the stormy sky, his brows tightly furrowed. Morning had barely arrived, Yet the rumbling thunder stirred up some unpleasant memories of that jutsu from a few days ago. He still hadn't figured out a way to counter it. Father. Kitsuchi, order everyone to increase vigilance. Be on guard against Hidden Leaf Village's shinobi attacks. Yes, I already warned them earlier. All of our sensor nen have been assigned to monitor the Hidden Leaf Village forces. Good. Onoki nodded, preparing to return and continue analyzing the jutsu. But before he could, a figure emerged from underground. Unhidden Stones Village Chunin. Tsuchikage-sama. The Hidden Leaf Village forces are moving, but they don't seem to be targeting us. Instead, they're heading for Hidden Grass Village. Hidden Grass Village? Onoki's frown deepened. Hidden Leaf Village going after the Kuzunin. That was unexpected. Father, what are they planning? I remember you saying that Sarutobi Hiruzen is usually indecisive and kind-hearted. This doesn't seem like a decision he would make. Kitsuchi was confused. This didn't match the image of the third Hokage that Onoki had described to him. Onoki scowled and snapped, "You idiot. I also told you that guy can take responsibility when needed. So this clearly wasn't his decision, he's just taking responsibility for someone else's actions." Oh. The young generation of Hidden Leaf Village, huh? Onoki quickly understood. Hidden Leaf Village wasn't being led by the third Hokage right now. The one steering the ship was a younger man, one named Kandakichi. Meanwhile, Hidden Stones Village had no such promising successors. He sighed, feeling helpless, then suddenly chuckled. Young people can't suppress their emotions. The Kuzunin are annoying, sure, but if you rip them out, you'll anger the rest of the field. So what do we do? We'll observe. But only from a distance, just the two of us. Onoki suspected that Hidden Leaf Village's jutsu lacked precise targeting. If it did, that second lightning strike should have hit him directly last time. That would have been in Hidden Leaf Village's best interest. Today, he had a chance to confirm his theory. Will Onoki come? He definitely will. That old man won't pass up a chance to observe the lightning style, Kirin. Sarutobi Hiruzen fully agreed with Koichi's prediction. Onoki would come. He wouldn't miss the opportunity to study the jutsu. At that moment, Koichi was already ahead, his body refining chakra as he ran, increasing his speed. Before long, he reached the border of Land of Grass. The leader of Hidden Grass Village had already received word. Asino-sama, Hidden Leaf Village is coming. You must flee. Do I have a choice? Asino Nariki sighed. Hidden Grass Village had refused to cooperate with Hidden Leaf Village, so they had lost Hidden Leaf Village as an ally. And now, if they ran, they wouldn't just lose Hidden Stones Village as an ally, they would also lose their home. He was lost. Hidden Grass Village's usual survival tactics no longer seemed effective. Perhaps the village needed a new path, but he hadn't found it yet. A figure emerged from the trees. It was a familiar face. A Hidden Leaf Village Jonin, Kandakichi. Asino Nariki? If I recall correctly, that's your name. Koichi looked at the two men before him, unsure of what to say. Yes. Hidden Grass Village had only sent 2 people. They stood there, weapons in hand, prepared to die. Hey, I didn't expect Hidden Leaf Village's new power player to remember my name. Should I feel honored? Asino Nariki let out a bitter laugh. I didn't expect that out of all the Kuzunin, only 2 have any backbone, while the rest just watch their leader march to his death from a distance. Koichi's gaze shifted past him, toward the trees in the distance. No one was visible. But he knew. Hidden beyond sight, many Kuzunin were watching. Some had already fled. Throwing away more lives is meaningless. All of Hidden Grass Village's mistakes are mine alone to bear. Asino Nariki said calmly. Then what are you doing? Hoping that by dying, Hidden Leaf Village will forgive you? You're overestimating your worth. Koichi spoke indifferently. As he spoke, he raised his hand and fired a signal flare. The flare shot forward, far into the distance. Asino Nariki was stunned. Then, he saw movement in the forest behind Koichi, dozens of figures emerging. Sarutobi Hiruzen stood at the forefront, gripping 2 swords, each crackling with white lightning. In a thunderstorm, there was no need for fire style to trigger the effect. Crack! A bolt of lightning tore through the sky, descending toward them. Before it could strike the ground, Hiruzen and the other lightning style users infused their weapons with chakra. In the next instant, Hiruzen guided the lightning with his blade and slashed forward. Boom! The Kuzunin witnessed the terrifying lightning style that had forced the Hidden Stones Village Nin into retreat. The devastating bolt of energy struck the distant forest, its blinding radiance illuminating the battlefield. Asino Nariki's eyes widened as he turned to watch the impact site. It wasn't too close to the main Hidden Grass Village force. But this was a stormy day. With rainwater conducting electricity, The lightning's destructive power spread further, creating flickering silver currents even near where he stood. He was speechless. Then, he turned back, only to meet Kletchi's cold gaze. These people aren't worth your sacrifice. Train a new generation, perhaps that's the real answer for Hidden Grass Village. Kletchi turned and left. He had no intention of killing a Shinon Nariki. Not out of pity. But because. At present, neither Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Stones Village, Hidden Rain Village, nor Hidden Waterfall Village had the strength to take control of the Land of Grass. If a Shinon Nariki died, Hidden Grass Village would be leaderless and would completely fall into Hidden Stones Village's hands, playing right into Onoki's plans. That outcome would be worse. By letting him live, Kletchi ensured that after the war, this leader would understand what choice he needed to make. Of course. That depended on whether Hueco followed through on his plan. If a strong small nation alliance emerged between Land of Fire and Land of Earth, future conflicts would be reduced significantly. As for that alliance, such coalitions always had weaknesses. If their central figure crumbled, the whole alliance would easily collapse. A Shinon Nariki stared at the ruins of the forest, at the wailing survivors scrambling away. The courage to resist Hidden Leaf Village had left him. Such a terrifying jutsu. Hidden Leaf Village could erase them at will. Hidden Grass Village was in no position to outmaneuver or oppose them. For the first time, he regretted his choices. Breaking away from Hidden Leaf Village had been the worst decision he had made since taking office. If he had stood firmly by Hidden Leaf Village, perhaps his village would have gained protection and benefits. The third Hokage was not unkind to allies. As long as they had truly stood by Hidden Leaf Village. But that was just a fantasy. Because he knew what kind of village Hidden Grass Village truly was. Chapter 135, Onoki? Leave him to me, father. Hidden Leaf Village has succeeded again. No matter how many times I witness it, I have to admit my admiration for the creativity of Hidden Leaf Village as shinobi. Such an immense lightning-style jutsu, even the Hidden Mist Village couldn't pull it off. If that boy really invented this, then he reminds me of a truly terrifying enemy. Senju Tobirama. Even in death, he remained a headache for every village. Onoki remained silent. He stared into the distance for a long time, a trace of doubt creeping into his mind. Did Hidden Leaf Village really send out shinobi just to bombard the Kuzunin? No. There had to be another reason. Onoki grew more cautious, sensing that he had overlooked something. As he pondered, Kazekage formed hand seals in the distance. A terrifying tidal wave surged through the forest, extinguishing the remaining flames and washing away any traces of the corpses. Then, the Hidden Leaf Village shinobi withdrew. This was a display of power. Onoki thought, believing he had grasped part of Hidden Leaf Village's intent: intimidation. The Kuzunin had never been known for their unwavering loyalty. Today, they had aligned with Hidden Stones Village simply because Hidden Stones Village was stationed in the Land of Grass. But tomorrow? If Hidden Leaf Village proved stronger, they might just switch sides again. Just days ago, Hidden Leaf Village had already repelled them with jutsu, killing a significant number of both Hidden Stones Village and Kuzunin. So, if Hidden Leaf Village continued to exert pressure, the Kuzunin might truly turn against him. After the Hidden Leaf Village forces left, Onoki silently approached with Akatsuchi, his expression unreadable. He could still sense the presence of surviving Kuzunin in the area, among them the one organizing the remnants, a Shinon Nariki. Onoki became even more convinced of his suspicions. Even if the Kuzunin didn't outright betray them, they were unlikely to put in much effort from now on. They would likely maintain a neutral, passive stance rather than fully supporting Hidden Stones Village. After all, no one could guarantee clear skies every day. The same lightning that had struck their shinobi today could easily rain down on Hidden Grass Village tomorrow. And they could not withstand Hidden Leaf Village's wrath. What a terrifying jutsu. He needed to find a countermeasure, fast. Onoki has left after today, he definitely won't trust the Hidden Grass Village anymore. Not that it matters, those guys have zero credibility. Betrayal is just a matter of time. Kletchi walked back with the squad. Due to the unusual weather, only a small number of shinobi had been deployed. Most were stationed at the border, guarding against a possible counterattack from Onoki and his Hidden Stones Village forces. After all, who could say Onoki wouldn't try to outmaneuver them? Instead of showing up here, he might just go straight for their main base. If they didn't plan ahead, they'd suffer a heavy loss. Kletchi wasn't reckless. While intimidating the Grass Ninja was one of his objectives, his primary goal was to draw attention away, to create a distraction for Minato Namikage's squad as they infiltrated enemy lines. This grand spectacle was more than enough to seize the focus of Onoki and the Kuzunin alike. Even Hyuga hadn't been told the true purpose of this mission. Upon returning to camp, they quickly debriefed before dispersing. Only the third Hokage and Kleichi remained. They were waiting for Minato's message. Hokage-sama, in my opinion, there's no need to wait so anxiously. You could have just called me after receiving the message. You should get some rest, Kleichi sighed. He didn't want to sit around waiting. But the third Hokage seemed particularly tense and insisted he stay. Kleichi, you must understand an old man's mindset. Ever since my teacher passed away, I've only wanted to stabilize Hidden Leaf Village. Though I don't seem to have made much progress, my nature is still to seek stability. The third let out a weary sigh. Those 12 are the future pillars of Hidden Leaf Village. You know, compared to Onoki, you really do seem older. Kleichi couldn't help but quip. Onoki was much older, yet it was the third whose mentality had already aged. There was no way Minato's squad would suffer any casualties. Obito hadn't even gone on the mission, and Kleichi had issued multiple directives to ensure their safety. There was no reason for concern. The third sighed. You don't understand. I rarely gamble. But ever since you and Tsunoda appeared, I find myself taking more and more risks. Well, I'm glad you're getting used to it. High risk, high reward. Kleichi didn't find it particularly noteworthy. The third was too cautious, which was exactly why people kept outmaneuvering him. In a way, a nobleman is easy to deceive. If Kleichi hadn't intervened, wouldn't the Kuzunin have continued leeching off Hidden Leaf Village? Since someone was going to exploit the situation, why shouldn't it be him? Kleichi felt no shame. Of course. The third didn't know what was going through his mind. Right now, all his worries were focused on Minato's squad. Just then, a chakra fluctuation appeared. A moment later, a familiar toad emerged on top of a flying thunder god kunai. Scanning the surroundings, it quickly locked onto Kleichi. Minato says he's already in position near the Land of Earth's border. He wants to know when you plan to launch the attack. Let me think. Kleichi calculated rapidly. Attacking immediately had its advantages. For example, in the rain, Onoki would be wary of their lightning style, keeping his attention on them. That would make it harder for him to notice the strike from behind. Moreover, the less time Minato's squad spent in enemy territory, the lower their chances of being discovered. And the Kuzunin were unlikely to interfere. Having considered everything, he made his decision. Now. Ribbit. The toad, Kazuki, blinked in surprise before immediately returning to Mount Mayabaku to relay the message to Minato. Hokage-sama, this time, you don't need to fight personally. Just being there is enough. Kleichi explained. If the third tried the same tactic again, Onoki wouldn't hesitate to retaliate. Particle style could disintegrate everything, including lightning. If Onoki could neutralize the third's lightning style, they wouldn't be able to direct the natural lightning at him. But if the third held back, Onoki would have to keep a constant watch on him instead. That was far more effective. The third, however, hesitated. If I don't fight, who will deal with Onoki? I will. Kleichi's voice was firm. The third frowned. Kleichi, against Onoki. Are you confident? To be honest, not really. But while I may not win, I can keep him occupied. Of course, if you have a better candidate, I'd much rather take out other Hidden Stones Village shinobi instead. Kleichi wasn't the type to chase difficult fights. And Onoki was as stubborn as he was powerful. The third considered other options, himself, Danzō, Maraboshi Kasuke. Danzō was immediately ruled out. That guy. Never reliable in critical moments. After some thought, the third realized that aside from himself, Kleichi was indeed the most capable of tying down Onoki. Still, he was reluctant. I came to the front lines specifically to deal with Onoki. Handing him over to you feels wrong. If that's the only reason, then there's no need to insist. I'm asking you to stay back not just because you're the Hokage, nor out of some respect for the elderly. It's because you're the strongest lightning style user here. Kleichi sighed. Without the third, there was no one else capable of guiding the natural lightning. Sure, Kleichi could temporarily boost his lightning style by tapping into his sealed yin chakra and tailed beast chakra, but that would be pointless. If the third exhausted his chakra, he wouldn't recover in time for later battles. Also, I'd appreciate it if you sent someone to ensure the safety of those kids. You don't need to tell me that. The third thought for a moment. Maraboshi Kasuke will go. You know his capabilities. Alright. Kleichi had no objections. At this stage, Maraboshi Kasuke was still in his prime. His strength ranked among the top elite jonin, and balancing combat while protecting a few kids wouldn't be a problem for him. With the discussion settled, the third Hokage immediately summoned all the shinobi. Most of them had assumed that after their operation against the Kuzunin, there wouldn't be another offensive against Hidden Stones Village Nin so soon. But barely moments after their return, the third called everyone together again. This time, he didn't hold anything back. A 12-man elite squad has already infiltrated the rear of Hidden Stone's village's forces. Meanwhile, the Eastern Front is under immense pressure. That's why we must end this quickly. The decisive battle is today. His voice was resolute, stirring the troops. Meanwhile, Kleichi arrived at Roshi's sealed tent, summoning a massive Katsu clone with the summoning jutsu. Then, he absorbed a significant portion of Roshi's energy to replenish his own. Without hesitation, he issued the next order: sealing team, prepare to open a gap in the seal. I need to extract his tailed beast chakra. That's right. Kleichi was here to recharge using Roshi. Although he hadn't been in direct combat for the past few days, he had consumed a considerable amount of tailed beast chakra while testing the 8 trigram seal and its effects. Kleichi-sama, this. Don't worry. As long as I'm here, he won't be causing any trouble. Kleichi didn't see Roshi as a threat. Of course. He also didn't believe that just because Roshi had listened to a few of his pep talks, he would obediently follow orders. That was precisely why he drained his physical and mental energy first. As the seal was loosened slightly, tailed beast chakra began seeping out. Roshi regained some energy, but almost instantly, that portion of chakra was also absorbed. Ugh! Roshi was speechless. It was humiliating, but he had to admit, this guy was maximizing the usefulness of a prisoner. Outside, the massive Katsu clone began dissolving into countless smaller slugs. He didn't know what they were for, but they definitely weren't just for wasting chakra. As for the tailed beast chakra that had been extracted from him, no doubt it would serve as Kleichi's energy source for pseudo-tailed beast transformations. At least he had no real attachment to Hidden Stone's village. Kleichi continued absorbing tailed beast chakra until his yin seal was completely filled, unable to store any more. Only then, with some reluctance, did he stop. Roshi, Son Goku, thanks. I'll thank you the day you stop being so damn ruthless. Roshi sounded drained, both physically and emotionally. As soon as Kleichi finished using him, he immediately sealed him back up, not even giving him a moment to recover his stamina or mental energy. Hey! Realizing that chances to meet Roshi would become increasingly rare, Kleichi figured he should come up with a way to store even larger amounts of tailed beast chakra next time. As a token of my appreciation, let me invite you to Hidden Leaf Village as a guest. We're short on personnel here, so we can't host you properly. With that, he had a Katsu clone swallow Roshi, and send him to Tsunade via Shikatsu Forest. Chapter 136, Have you ever heard of blossoming from the center? Kleichi-sama, what about us? You're going to battle too. Even if you're not strong enough for direct combat, you can at least throw shuriken from the back, right? The sealing team were also combat assets. More importantly, what if Hidden Stone's village nin decided to counterattack and raid their camp? So, the best solution was, everyone joined the battle, leaving no opening for a sneak attack. The sealing team hesitated for a moment, but eventually nodded in agreement. Kleichi sealed the gap in the barrier and then formed hand seals, sending the small slugs that had separated from the larger one crawling toward the various Hidden Leaf Village shinobi in the camp. The slug he summoned this time was massive, though not as large as the one Tsunade could summon at full power. It wasn't far off. However, it was still just a fragment of the original entity from the Shikatsu Forest. Even so, when it dispersed and spread out, the number of slugs was still insufficient. But Kleichi needed to conserve chakra. He still had to face Onoki, and he had to be in peak condition for the battle. Quickly, Kleichi made his decision. He guided the slugs with more precision, prioritizing key targets. Each child received one. Next were the elite combat squads assigned to spearhead the attack. It still wasn't enough, but he did everything he could to cover those in the greatest danger. After that, he left behind a shadow clone. Kleichi, you only have half your chakra left. Facing Onoki like this could be extremely risky. The third Hokage frowned, visibly concerned. He understood why Kleichi left a shadow clone. It was a backup for using the slug jutsu at a critical moment. But what about Kleichi himself? Hokage-sama, that's why I need everyone's help. I'd like the sealing team, the interrogation corps, and other non-combat ninja to lend me their chakra. The sealing team, who had just been relieved of guarding Roshi, were speechless. So this was what he had planned? Those who had fought alongside Kleichi in the eastern battles were already used to this. After all, in a way, they were like walking chakra batteries contributing to Hidden Leaf Village, just in a different way than most shinobi. It won't harm them, right? The third Hokage hadn't expected such an approach. Absolutely not. As he spoke, Kleichi grabbed an old acquaintance and began absorbing their chakra. Within moments, the energy he had expended creating his shadow clone was restored. Chakra absorption jutsu really was a fantastic jutsu. Alright, let's do it. With all preparations in place, no one objected further. Asuma looked at Koichi from a distance, gripping his trench knives tightly, his face clouded with frustration. I'd advise you not to overthink it. If sensei wants to do something, no one can stop him. And if he doesn't want to, no one can force him. This decision isn't the Hokage's idea, it's his own. Shizue spoke quietly beside him. Asuma froze for a moment before muttering, was I that obvious? It's practically written on your face. Kurenai sighed. Let's go. This time, sensei won't be looking out for us, and it's going to be a real fight. Everyone needs to be careful. The three of them fell silent. It wasn't as if they'd never fought before. From the sea battles to the land of earth, they had already experienced plenty of combat, but never once without Koichi by their side. As long as their teacher was there, they had always believed they would be safe. However, now, Koichi was going to face Onoki and wouldn't have time to protect them. Although he had left a shadow clone behind, that clone's priority was to support those under the slug's influence. This battle, they would have to handle on their own. The three of them tightened their grips on their weapons. Move out. Whoosh, the entire force left the camp, including the medical nin, who carried their equipment as they followed. Asuma and the others stuck together, but behind them, Maraboshi Kasuke watched the young shinobi with his lone right eye, reminiscing about the past. His hand rested on his sword hilt, lost in thought. This time, I will protect you. What are you all doing here? Koichi walked at the front, accompanied by Four and Boo. There was no need to ask. From their masks and their voices, he could immediately tell it was Gekko Hyate and his squad. The Hokage ordered us to support you and ensure your safety. Gekko Hyate stated simply. That's unnecessary. Just focus on taking down enemies. No. This is the Hokage's direct order. Gekko Hyate was stubborn. The other three refused to leave as well, especially Kohinata Makai, who had finally glimpsed a light in the darkness and wasn't about to let it slip away. They all understood how powerful Onoki was. Particle style, weighted boulder jutsu, lightened boulder jutsu. Simply put, Koichi had zero room for error. If he got hit by the weighted boulder jutsu, his speed advantage would be completely negated. The presence of Gekko Hyate's team was meant to prevent that. Koichi sighed. Most of the time, these four would listen to him. But obviously, this was one of the exceptions. No matter what he said, they wouldn't leave. He had no choice but to say, don't assume I'm reckless. I'm not going to engage Onoki in direct combat. So unless it's absolutely necessary, do not interfere in my fight with him. More than anyone, Koichi understood the terror of particle style. It was a Kekkei that could erase even Madara's Susanoo with ease. Yes. The rain poured down in torrents. Onoki and Kitsuchi returned from their patrol. Over the past few days, Onoki's back pain had finally subsided, and after much consideration, he was no longer worried about Koichi's floating, free-moving explosive tag jutsu. The only real problem was lightning. Particle style could counter it, but he couldn't rely on particle style for everything. We can't let our guard down until the rain stops. Yes. As soon as Kitsuchi returned, he issued orders to the troops. The Kuzunin battle had made one thing abundantly clear: if the weather conditions were right, Hidden Leaf Village could unleash that terrifying lightning-style jutsu. Unless they found a way to counter it, they had to be on high alert for a surprise attack. And as it turned out, their caution was justified. Not long after, Unhidden Stone's village Chunin rushed back using Earth style. Tsuchikage-sama, Hidden Leaf Village is attacking. As expected. Move out. Onoki was furious. He knew Hidden Leaf Village wouldn't let this opportunity slip. If he were in their position, he wouldn't either. Rain enhanced water style and lightning style, though it weakened fire style. But in truth, fire didn't do much damage to Earth style anyway. So, this weather was perfect for Hidden Leaf Village. The entire Hidden Stones Village camp sprang into action. All Hidden Stones Village shinobi stationed in the Land of Grass advanced, preparing to defend against Hidden Leaf Village's assault. However, Onoki wasn't planning for an all-out battle. His goal was to repel Hidden Leaf Village and endure the rainy conditions. This kind of weather was the last thing Onoki wanted for a battlefield. But the moment he arrived at the front lines, Onoki knew he could no longer cling to wishful thinking. Hidden Leaf Village had even brought medical nin to the battlefield. A decisive battle it was. Hiruzen Sarutobi, I didn't expect you to be so aggressive, choosing to face Hidden Stones Village in an all-out war. Onoki floated forward, speaking coldly. He was hoping Hiruzen would respond. If the man spoke, he wouldn't be able to control the lightning. Such a jutsu required absolute focus, and there was no way the third Hokage could afford to split his chakra into shadow clones while using it. However, Hiruzen didn't appear. Instead, Stepping forward was Kazekage, that detestable man. "Onoki, you and the army behind you. Guess where we'll strike first?" Kazekage said with a smirk. He had just sensed the battlefield. Minato and the others hadn't arrived yet, so he needed to wait a little longer. Onoki sneered. "You think I haven't figured out your jutsu after all these days? Controlling lightning requires extreme mastery of lightning style. The more precise the target, the higher the skill needed. And you expect that old man Hiruzen to strike me? If I recall correctly, you're the older one here." Kazekage stepped forward. "Age means nothing. Premature decline is entirely possible for someone like Hiruzen Sarutobi." Both had their own objectives. Onoki was focused on fortifying his defenses, while Kazekage was waiting for Minato and the others. So, the two continued their back and forth, exchanging words without rushing into battle. Then, a surge of lightning erupted in the rear. Onoki flinched and immediately dropped lower, wary of a direct strike while airborne. But after a few moments, nothing happened. Clearly, the enemy wasn't actually using Kirin. They had only wanted to scare him, but it worked. Onoki took a deep breath and sneered. "Attack!" In an instant, a massive earth formation erupted from the ground, engulfing Hidden Leaf Village's vanguard. Two colossal walls of rock closed in with terrifying speed. Dozens of figures emerged from the forest. Hidden Stone's village shinobi launched their full assault, with Onoki leading the charge. A chaotic mass of rock walls and stone barriers severed Kage's retreat completely. All Hidden Stone's village shinobi swarmed toward Kage. "Ha ha ha. Boy, I was waiting for my jutsu to be ready." "What were you waiting for?" Onoki laughed, rising into the air. Still wary of lightning, he hovered just above the ground. In his hands, a chakra-formed cube began to take shape, particle style. Meanwhile, the other Hidden Stones village shinobi bombarded the area with earth-style jutsus to restrict Kage's movements. An overwhelming wave of earth jutsu rained down, blasting the ground around him. Yet Kage stood still, smiling as he looked up at Onoki. "Take a guess. Don't let this brat escape with earth style. Catch him first, then deal with the others." Onoki barked. In the next moment, he ascended directly above Kage and hurled the glowing particle-style cube downward. Below, the entire ground had already been saturated with Hidden Stones Village's earth-style chakra. Escape through the earth-style? Impossible. But what baffled Onoki was that Kage didn't even try to run. "You know, there's a strategy called blossoming from the center. Its success rate isn't high, but I think I'll give it a shot. Because I don't think you're strong enough to take me down quickly." As soon as he finished speaking, he extended his hand. The rain around them plunged into an icy chill. Raindrops rapidly froze, transforming into hailstones that belted the enemy forces. Onoki's particle style was instantly blocked by an ice barrier that materialized out of nowhere. "Ice style? You actually mastered ice style?" Onoki was in utter disbelief. Ice style was a Genkai, and Hidden Leaf Village had no known bloodlines capable of using it. Piecing together all the clues, an ominous realization crept over him. "You can use particle style. Why can't I use ice style?" Mist thickened, swirling across the battlefield. A chilling voice echoed through the fog. Kitsuchi launched an iron rock cannon straight at Kage, but it only struck an afterimage. Chapter 137, Flying? I know a thing or two. A piercing scream echoed through the battlefield, yet even Onoki couldn't pinpoint Kage's exact location. His chakra was completely blocking their sensory abilities. Hiding in mist jutsu and silent killing jutsu even more terrifying than those used by the Hidden Mist Village. The second Mizukage's jutsu. Before long, a fierce gust of wind howled through the battlefield. Dozens of wind-style, great breakthroughs. Hidden Stones Village nin weren't without wind-style users, but compared to Hidden Leaf Village, they were fewer in number. However, dispersing the mist was still within their capability. And yet, the moment they cleared the mist, their sensory abilities detected Kage dragging an Hidden Stones Village nin into a crevice formed by earth-style jutsus. The next instant, before the Hidden Stones Village nin could entrap him with earth-style, Kage snapped his captive's neck and burst out of the ground. There was no other choice. The underground was crawling with Hidden Stones Village nin, leaving nowhere to hide. At that moment, a barrage of earth-style jutsu came crashing down, forming a massive stone prison around him. In the hazy light, he caught sight of Onoki and Kitsuchi appearing with the body flicker jutsu, Kitsuchi's arm transforming into a massive stone fist. Fist rock jutsu. And also, added weight rock jutsu. Before they could strike, boom. A thunderous explosion erupted from beneath the stone prison as a terrifying chakra surged forth. In the next instant, a single punch, the entire stone structure shattered into fragments. Molten lava seeped through the cracks, flowing into the earth below and scalding the Hidden Stones village nin using earth style to move underground. Kitsushi's fist came crashing down, only to be met with an even more devastating counterattack. The power of a tailed beast, enhanced by monstrous strength jutsus, combined with a strange, jagged blade. One slash, Kitsushi's rocky fist covering his arm vanished. His heart clenched in shock. But, retreating now was impossible. Fortunately, Onoki grabbed him just in time, using a lightweight rock jutsu to make him lighter and swiftly pulling him back, narrowly avoiding the devastating punch powered by the tailed beast's chakra. Even so, Kitsushi's arm was already scorched and blistered. And that was just from the mere graze. Lava style. Tailed beast transformation. Onoki took a deep breath. The abilities Kyoichi had just displayed were beyond his comprehension. He was certain this young Hidden Leaf village shinobi wasn't a full-fledged Jinchuriki. He must have found a way to borrow the tailed beast's chakra. But how? That blade? There was no time to dwell on it. One thing was clear, surrounding and overwhelming Kyoichi was not a viable option. Moreover, Hidden Leaf village's other shinobi had already begun their assault, and there was no telling when Hyuga and Sarutobi would make his move. He had to divide his forces. I'll take care of him. The rest of you handle the others. Onoki's expression turned grim. He had to admit, the 17-year-old Hidden Leaf village jonin before him might be unbeatable, save for himself. Too dangerous. Even the legendary second Hokage, Tobi Ramasenshu, at this age, might not have been as formidable as this boy. The Hidden Stones village nin followed orders without hesitation. With Onoki's command, they swiftly dispersed to engage the advancing Hidden Leaf village forces. In an instant, only Kyoichi and Onoki remained. You see, Kyoichi said with a smirk, my goal was always just to stall you. Why don't we just sit back and watch the fight unfold? Enough nonsense. There was no way Onoki would agree. He refused to believe he was weaker than Kyoichi. He had to take him down quickly, then he could turn his focus toward Hyuga and Sarutobi. And so, the real battle began. Kyoichi's expression turned serious. Against multiple enemies, it seemed like he was at a disadvantage, but in truth, the Hidden Stones village nin had served as his cover, preventing Onoki from using large-scale particle-style jutsus. But, now that it was one-on-one, Onoki had no need to hold back. Dust-style, detachment of the primitive world jutsu. A massive cube enveloped Kyoichi from all sides. This time, it was several times faster than before. If Kyoichi hadn't been in his tailed beast transformation, he would have had to activate the Seven Heavens breathing method just to keep up. After he used the body flicker jutsu, all the earth walls and spikes were disintegrated into atoms. And that wasn't all. In the next instant, Onoki moved with astonishing speed, instantly closing in on Kyoichi. As soon as Kyoichi flickered away, another cylindrical particle-style beam came blasting toward him at an angle. With his firepower fully unleashed, Onoki had increased both his own speed and the velocity of his particle-style jutsus considerably. A direct hit from this specialized cylindrical particle style would completely annihilate anything in its path, even ice-style defenses. Nothing could withstand its disintegration. This was the terrifying power of bloodline selection. Kyoichi was envious. But a jutsu of this level couldn't simply be copied. Even if he had access to the training methods for bloodline selection and possessed fire-style chakra, it would still be nearly impossible to master. Otherwise, Hidden Stones village wouldn't be struggling with a lack of successors. Kyoichi focused all his attention. His lungs and skin began to breathe. He had entered the first activation. There was no other choice. Onoki was too fast under the effects of the lightweight rock jutsu, and with both particle style and the heavyweight rock jutsu posing constant threats, Kyoichi had to bring out his full strength. Of course, Kyoichi wasn't just going to stand there and take hits. A skilled assassin only needed a single moment to turn the tables, and he was patiently waiting for his opportunity. Onoki didn't know what Kyoichi was planning. But he knew he had to be wary of Kyoichi's explosive tags and those swords. 3 particle-style attacks. Yet, Kyoichi didn't reveal a single flaw, nor did he show any intention of launching a close-range counterattack. Onoki's heart sank. He was a seasoned warrior. While he lacked extraordinary sensory abilities, his battle intuition far surpassed that of ordinary shinobi. He could tell that Hidden Leaf Village's plans extended beyond this duel. No lightning style had appeared. The main forces seemed to be limited. It looked as though Hidden Leaf Village lacked the means for an all-out battle. Why? A sense of urgency grew in Onoki's mind. He ascended higher into the air, hoping to get a better view of the battlefield. And then, he saw something was wrong. At the front lines, Hyuga and Sarutobi was engaged in a fierce battle with Hidden Leaf Village's shinobi, while the rear camp was in complete disarray. Medical nin were retreating toward him. Impossible. Onoki was stunned. At that moment, the tailed beast chakra around Koichi withdrew, returning to the yin seal, and his outer cloak suddenly tore apart, transforming into a pair of pure white wings. Dance of the Shikigami, angel form. In the next moment, third activation. Whoosh, a sharp sound of air being sliced through. And a blindingly fast blade. Onoki couldn't see Koichi's movements or position at all. His eyes could no longer be trusted. Because what he saw could very well be just an afterimage, the real Koichi had already moved elsewhere. He immediately formed hand seals, and then, from his mouth, he expelled a mass of earth that rapidly condensed into a massive stone giant. The giant trapped its hands around Onoki, shielding him. Earth-style, golem jutsu. Empowered by the lightweight rock jutsu, the golem hovered and positioned itself to block any attacks aimed at Onoki's back. But then, a single slash. The stone giant was cleaved in two. Even though Koichi didn't use lightning style, his wind-style sword jutsus were sharp enough to slice through stone with ease. Onoki didn't have time to hesitate. He formed seals midair, landed, and slammed his hand onto the ground. A massive rock arm emerged, shielding him once more. But, through the gaps, he saw Koichi forming an unusual hand sign. In the next instant, he sensed a surge of chakra on his body. Not good. Explosive tags. Onoki was horrified. Without a second thought, he immediately shed his robe and used the Earth Dragon submersion jutsu to burrow underground. He never expected Koichi to be able to fly. And even after cutting through his defensive jutsu with a single sword strike, Koichi still managed to plant explosive tags up close. However, Onoki was a veteran warrior with vast battle experience. Before fully submerging underground, he quickly gathered chakra in his palm and formed a cube above him, enclosing his position precisely. Boom. The explosive tags and ensuing flames were all disintegrated and neutralized. Koichi frowned. He managed to counter that? What a tough opponent. Little did Koichi know, Onoki was thinking the same thing. I almost died. Hiding underground, Onoki was drenched in cold sweat. Ever since the second generation of shinobi from various villages had passed away, it had been a long time since he had felt the threat of death. But in that brief moment, he had been terrifyingly close to it. A fraction of a second slower, and he wouldn't have survived. His years of battle-honed instincts had saved him. Damn it. This guy is a complete monster. He can't even fly. Is there anything he can't do? The Senju and Uchiha are all monsters. He cursed in his heart. However, Onoki noticed something crucial. Koichi's speed wasn't constant. After observing for a moment, he realized that Koichi's bursts of speed came from leveraging external forces to propel himself. In pure flight, Onoki was still superior. But despite this realization, he couldn't help but feel a sense of defeat. As the Tsuchikage, when did it come to this, comparing flight speed with another shinobi? It wasn't that he lacked options, but he didn't want to waste too much chakra against Koichi. There was no point. Koichi was a Senju. Who knew how much chakra this guy had? Moreover, Koichi wasn't even Hidden Leaf Village's leader, while he was the Tsuchikage. Their positions and importance were vastly different. Onoki couldn't afford unnecessary risks, especially with the battlefield situation worsening both at the front lines and the rear. He couldn't gamble. Onoki broke away, quickly flying forward. Koichi pursued. In pure flight, he wasn't as fast as Onoki. But with body flicker, taijutsu jutsus, and momentum-assisted gliding, it was a different story. And this was exactly what Onoki feared. That earlier sword strike had been so fast, he hadn't even seen it coming. Many Hidden Stones village nin were stunned. To them, Onoki was practically invincible. But now, Onoki was being chased down by Koichi. This was a misunderstanding. But no matter the truth, the morale of the Hidden Stones village nin had already been shaken. Yet, Onoki had no time to care. His only goal now was to kill Hiruzen Sarutobi. Defeat the commander, and Hidden Leaf Village's morale would crumble. Hidden Stones village could turn the tide. It was a good plan. However, he underestimated Koichi's speed. To catch up, Koichi unsealed his chakra again, his body shrouded in the tailed beast's cloak. The increase wasn't immense, but it was enough. The boost was just enough to close the gap. But just as Koichi was about to reach him, Onoki suddenly turned back, a brilliant beam of particle style erupting between his hands. He had timed it perfectly. This was the moment when Koichi's speed was at its lowest. In midair, there was almost no way to dodge. But, at that instant, Koichi's body transformed into countless fluttering paper sheets. Some were disintegrated, but many reassembled elsewhere. At the same time, Koichi reached out, manipulating chakra. Throughout the battle, Onoki had been drenched in rain, and he had discarded his robe to escape the explosive tags. Now, ice-style chakra surged through the rain, taking control of the water clinging to Onoki's body. Instantly, the rainwater froze. Onoki's hands turned to ice. He tried to form hand seals, but the ice expanded rapidly into massive chains. His hands were frozen solid. Chapter 138, Even without flying Thunder God, still Godspeed Tsuchikage-sama. The Hidden Stones village nin were frantic, their hearts gripped with fear. Earlier, when they saw Onoki's counterattack, they had assumed Koichi had been killed. But in the blink of an eye, their opponent had used some bizarre jutsu, turning into paper to reassemble himself and escape. And that wasn't all. At the last moment, Onoki's hands had been frozen in place by ice. For any shinobi, hands were essential for performing jutsu. If their hands were immobilized, they were effectively rendered powerless. This was dangerous. The Hidden Stones village nin wished they could rush in to take Onoki's place, but floating in midair, they had no way to intervene. All they could do was watch and pray that Onoki could break free from Koichi's ice style. Fortunately, in the next moment, layers of rock formed over Onoki's arms. With a furious roar, his muscles bulged as he forcibly shattered the ice shackles. Though his hands were frostbitten and stiff, there was no time to dwell on it. What truly reassured Onoki was that his particle style had at least landed a hit. Although his opponent had evaded using that strange paper style, he could see clearly, Koichi's wings had shrunk in size, and his flight speed had noticeably decreased. If not for that, Koichi wouldn't have chosen to land and escape just now, he would have flown in to finish him off. Cold sweat dripped down Onoki's forehead. But after analyzing the situation, he felt more confident. He had seen through Koichi's flight limitations. Unless Koichi could find external support, his flight speed alone wasn't enough to match Onoki's lightweight rock jutsu. At this speed, the accuracy of Onoki's particle style would also improve significantly. Above this altitude, Koichi was no longer a threat. Koichi looked up, feeling somewhat resigned. As expected of Onoki, he had quickly identified the flaw in Koichi's flying jutsu, striking at the exact moment his speed had dropped. That attack had nearly killed him. Thankfully, he had God's paper form. Without it, he would have had to rely on Cialis healing to survive. So, fighting Onoki at this altitude was definitely unwise. Since Onoki refused to come down, there was no point in pursuing him further. Koichi-sama, what should we do? Gecko Hyate caught up, anxious and concerned. He had thought he could help, but reality proved otherwise. Against these top-tier powerhouses, he wasn't even qualified to act as a sacrifice. They couldn't even reach that high. Let the Hokage worry about it. I've stalled long enough, and I'm running out of options. Koichi took a deep breath. Though his fight with Onoki had seemed brief, the chakra and stamina he had expended were significant. More importantly, Onoki had figured out the jutsus that could threaten him. If Onoki didn't engage him directly, there was no way to hold him back. There were still some tricks he could use to prolong the fight, but it wasn't worth it. Onoki was surely low on chakra as well, and as long as the third Hokage could hold out, their side would win. So what now? I'm heading to the Hokage. You figure things out on your own. Koichi thought for a moment and then made his decision, to head towards Hiru's and Saratobi's battlefield. He didn't particularly care whether the third Hokage lived or died, but if Saratobi actually perished, Danzo would be the one celebrating the most. Between Saratobi and Danzo, Koichi would much rather see the latter suffer. So, he was going. Koichi put away Seimada. Although Seimada was powerful, it wasn't suited for high-speed assaults and quick kills, especially against Hidden Stones village nin. Most Hidden Stones village nin used solid earth and rock-based jutsu, making Seimada less effective. A traditional blade would be much more efficient. Thus, he switched to the Executioner's blade. In terms of sharpness, it was inferior to the custom-forged blade he had commissioned from the third Hokage. But in terms of weight, it was much heavier, making it devastating when combined with super-strength jutsu. Earth walls? Stone pillars? A single swing could destroy them all. In the next instant, his blade, now imbued with wind-style chakra, flashed across an enemy's throat. On the ground, his speed had slowed significantly. However, his killing efficiency had increased dramatically. Onoki watched, his heart bleeding, but there was nothing he could do. This brat was just too difficult to deal with, and killing him now held no strategic value. The true enemy leader was still the third Hokage. At the rear lines. Captain, do we take out the medical nin too? Kill them. Minato Namikaze didn't hesitate. In fact, he was the first to charge in. The Hidden Stones village nin had left a considerable force behind, but they were no match for Minato's elite squad. Without further delay, Shirakawa Hayama activated breath activation jutsu, combined it with body flicker jutsu, and instantly closed the distance to the Hidden Stones village nin. Earth walls, earth spikes, and rock projectiles flew toward him. But then, wind blade, vacuum blade. A gust of wind howled, slicing through everything. Rocks and earth were shredded and sent flying toward the defenders. In the next instant, over a dozen flying thunder god kunai streaked through the air. The Hidden Stones village nin quickly dodged. However, a flash of golden light streaked through their ranks. Swish. In the blink of an eye, a golden blur wove through them at an unimaginable speed. Before they even registered what had happened, Hidden Leaf Village's shinobi had already bypassed them, continuing their pursuit. Only then did they feel the pain. Blood splattered across the battlefield. Minato wasn't the only one killing, a Barame Shibi and the others were slaughtering as well. Shibi's insects were nearly unstoppable in this chaotic melee, and the Hidden Stones village nin were helpless against them. Even though Minato's squad numbered only 12, they were utterly dominant. It was a massacre. And yet, the remaining Hidden Stones village nin showed no signs of surrendering. They hastily reorganized their defenses, but their lines soon crumbled. Some held their ground, while others fled toward Danoki's position. In less than 15 minutes, their camp was devoid of life. Move forward. Meanwhile, in the forest, skirmishes were raging everywhere. Hidden Stones village nin excelled at siege warfare, but open field skirmishes were not their forte. However, to counter Kirin, they had no choice but to fight in the open. Despite their superior numbers, Hidden Leaf Village's elite jonin were simply stronger, a situation worsened by Koichi's earlier assassinations. So, with Koichi's arrival, the battle was evenly matched. He spotted flames rising in the distance, Morning Peacock's flames. Had Might Dewey opened the sixth gate? Against Kitsuchi? Koichi hesitated briefly, then changed course, heading toward Dewey instead of the third Hokage. Kitsuchi wasn't skilled in particle style or lightweight and heavyweight rock jutsu, but he was still formidable. His defenses might be too much for Dewey. Might Dewey was strong, but his weaknesses were more pronounced than Guy's. Koichi rushed forward. As he arrived, he saw Kitsuchi leading 4 or 5 squads, surrounding Might Dewey, Kazuki, and Asuma. Around them lay numerous Hidden Stones village nin corpses. They had killed too many, drawing Kitsuchi's attention. Now, the ones participating in the siege were all elite squads, composed of elite jonin and chunin, far superior to their current veteran mentoring the new team composition. One after another, Earth-style jutsus rained down, making it difficult for Dewey and Kazuki to unleash their full strength. No wonder Might Dewey had to open the sixth gate. Koichi suppressed his presence, quietly refining his chakra. Gecko Hyate and the others followed closely behind. Koichi glanced back at them, then issued a series of orders. Capture Kitsuchi alive. As for the others, kill them all. Although Koichi was fairly certain that the situation with the third Hokage was under control, there was no guarantee that something unexpected wouldn't happen. A swift and decisive victory was necessary. The command was given. Then, whoosh! A piercing sound cut through the air. Kitsuchi heard the disturbance and immediately sensed an incoming enemy. He hurriedly raised a earth flow wall to defend. But, just as the wall rose, a figure had already flashed past it. Koichi. Retreat! Kitsuchi shouted, forming hand seals before slamming his hands onto the ground. The earth trembled and rose, forming a massive earth mountain that enclosed Might Dewey and his group in the center before rapidly closing in. He intended to force Koichi to react and split his attention. However, Koichi didn't even spare it a glance. He knew that such a jutsu would never kill Might Dewey and the others. Let alone the fact that Dewey could open the seventh gate if necessary. Even if he didn't, Kosuke would surely find a way. Sure enough. The next moment, water surged from within the mountain. Obito had slipped inside using an Hidden Stones village-style infiltration jutsu, while Rin and the others used a combination of body flicker and substitution jutsus, riding the force of the torrent to escape from the collapsing mountain. And then, the seventh gate, open. Dewey's speed skyrocketed to its peak as he grabbed the now exhausted Kazuki, pulling him out from inside. Kitsuchi had no intention of staying. The moment he finished his jutsu, he tried to flee. But, a blade light flashed past. Kitsuchi narrowly dodged it. He was sure he had avoided Koichi's wind-style sword slash, yet his foot was still injured. The next second, a figure landed right in front of him. 1 strike, 2 strikes. His chakra was suddenly sealed. Hyuga clan? Kitsuchi tried to resist, but his opponent had already struck 4 more times. Then, with swift hand seals, a hand pressed against his body. Evil sealing method. Almost all of his chakra was sealed away. Kitsuchi attempted to fight back with taijutsu, but the moment he moved, 2 chains shot out, wrapping around him in an instant. The Hidden Stones village nin squads turned back to assist him, only to be greeted by 2 razor-sharp wind wings spreading wide, dual blade style, flying swallow. Brilliant wind-style chakra condensed into two glowing blades, dancing through the enemy ranks. The Hidden Stones villagemen reacted quickly, many attempting to counter with 8 trigram vacuum palm, but when they saw those two flashing sword lights, their eyes momentarily went blank. In the next instant, a shadow blurred past. Blood sprayed in the air. "Don't look directly at his sword," Higashi Shinen shouted in warning. As an elite Jonin, his reflexes were fast, he barely dodged one strike and even threw a barrage of shuriken in return. But, thud, thud, thud. Each shuriken passed straight through Kyoichi's body. A clone? His mind went blank. The next second, that afterimage moved, it turned into a blinding streak of light, rushing straight toward him. Higashi Shinen assumed it was just a shadow clone, so he only hardened his body with earth-style while forming seals to assist his comrades. But in the very next moment, his throat tightened. Looking down, a sword of blood sprayed from his neck. It was the real body? His eyes were filled with unwillingness. This was the special Shunshin jutsu that Shizui would one day be known for. At extreme speed, dozens of clones blurred together, making it impossible to distinguish the real one. Unseeable. Unstoppable. 3 seconds later. "I'm going to assist the Hokage. You finish up here." As Kyoichi's voice echoed, all his outer images vanished at the same time. His real body was already 30 meters away, standing on a tree. So fast. Shizui stared in shock. He prided himself on his speed, even keeping his Sharingan active, but what did he see just now? Nothing. Every single afterimage had seemed real. This could only mean his teacher's speed had already surpassed what a one-Tomoe Sharingan could perceive. All that remained at the scene were the agonized groans of the defeated Hidden Stones villagemen. Only now did Might Gyui and Kazuk finally stop. Gyui had been planning to unleash Daytime Tiger, but after looking around, it seemed unnecessary. Kitsushi was already sealed. 4 or 5 elite squads had been wiped out in mere seconds. While a few survived, they were either missing limbs or had been crippled beyond recovery. Kazuk murmured to himself, "Second Hokage-sama, you have a successor just as powerful as you." In Kyoichi, he saw the shadow of Tobirama Senju. Kyoichi didn't use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. But did it even matter? With Tailed Beast Cloak, 7 Heavens Breathing, and Shunshin stacked together, his speed rivaled the legendary jutsu itself. Of course, what amazed Kazuk even more wasn't just Kyoichi's speed, but his swordsmanship. As a master of the blade himself, he fully understood the depth of those few slashes. Ganjutsu, wind style, and taijutsu, perfectly fused into swordplay. Even the second Hokage had never achieved that. Kazuk was shaken, but his instincts remained sharp. He quickly refocused. "You all go support the others. We can handle things here." "Understood." Gecko Hyate nodded, raising his hand in a quick gesture. In an instant, the 4 of them disappeared with body flicker. Chapter 139, He's your own son, you gotta pay more. At this moment, Onoki had already located Hiruzen Sarutobi. Without any unnecessary words, the moment he spotted his target, Onoki dived straight toward him. Hiruzen squinted slightly, crossing his twin blades. A streak of lightning surged from the weapons and shot toward the sky. Crack! A deafening roar split the air as silver-white lightning slashed down diagonally from the sky. Under normal circumstances, he would worry about the lightning he summoned harming his own forces, so he wouldn't dare to use lightning-style Kirin. But now, with a bright and obvious target in the sky, what was there to hesitate about? In the blink of an eye, the thunderbolt struck. The Onoki in midair was instantly reduced to a pile of ash. Yet from within the electric glow, a figure darted out. Behind him, the target struck by the lightning had merely been an earth clone. Even so, after dodging the attack, Onoki couldn't help but fall into deep thought. High altitude, the key to countering this jutsu was right there. Unfortunately, at this point, figuring out how to counter lightning style didn't matter anymore. Onoki glanced back. Everywhere he looked, Hidden Stones Village's forces dominated the battlefield. Many Hidden Stones villagemen who had spotted him had already regrouped, breaching Hidden Leaf Village's defensive lines and closing in on his position. Hidden Leaf Village's numbers were inferior to Hidden Stones Village's, so in direct confrontation, Hidden Stones villagemen held the upper hand. If he could kill or capture the third Hokage, the battle would take a drastic turn. At the very least, Sarutobi could serve as an invaluable bargaining chip in negotiations. Hidden Leaf Village's Anbu stepped forward, surrounding and protecting the third Hokage, but Hiruzen simply waved them off. "Go deal with the others. Onoki isn't at full strength, he doesn't stand a chance against me." With that, he sheathed his lightning blade. After all, he wasn't truly proficient with swords. In a real battle, his ninjutsu would prove far more effective. Yes. The Anbu operatives dispersed. Onoki, of course, had no intention of being polite. This battle concerned the fate of Hidden Stone's village, and if Hiruzen wanted to handicap himself, the Tsuchikage wouldn't feel the slightest bit ashamed. If anything, he'd complain that the Hokage wasn't going easy enough. The moment the Anbu left, he flickered forward, appearing right in front of Hiruzen. But Sarutobi instantly flickered backward. At the same time, countless shuriken materialized out of nowhere, blotting out the sky as they rained down upon Onoki. The airborne Tsuchikage swiftly dodged, enhancing his fists with earth style to swat away several projectiles. Before he could catch a break, a water dragon surged upward, crackling sporadically with silver-white lightning, cooperation ninjutsu, lightning water dragon bullet. As a master of all chakra natures, Hiruzen specialized in these types of hybrid jutsus. Earth style countered water style. However, when water dragon bullet was infused with lightning chakra, earth defenses became utterly ineffective. Onoki didn't dare to take it head-on. He submerged into the earth, using hidden moljutsu to avoid the incoming lightning-infused water dragon. However, the moment he burrowed underground, he felt the entire terrain soften beneath him. Onoki immediately realized something was wrong. He surfaced instantly, but it was already too late. The entire battlefield had been turned into a flowing mire, sweeping him backward like a raging river, carrying him straight toward Hidden Stone's village's earth-style barriers. Onoki was dragged a significant distance before he managed to substitute out at the last moment. When he reappeared, Hiruzen Sarutobi had already pulled some distance away. Onoki used body flicker to catch up, only to be met with a barrage of earth bullets erupting from the ground and a massive fire dragon bullet roaring toward him. Combination jutsu, Earth Dragon Flame Stream. And it was launched from an unpredictable angle. Onoki could feel just how troublesome Sarutobi was. If Koichi was fast and elusive, then Hiruzen was experienced and cunning. His diverse combinations of jutsu, coupled with his unexpected casting angles, made him an absolute nightmare to deal with. Faced with such a jutsu, Onoki had no choice but to unleash Dust Style, detachment of the primitive world jutsu. However, the moment his particle style swallowed the Earth Dragon Flame Stream, Hiruzen had already used Earth Style substitution to reposition himself. Yet this time, Onoki anticipated his move and flickered forward first. Rock Fist. Added weight rock jutsu. Boom. The ground beneath them shattered violently. But then, a staff erupted from the earth. Onoki had no time to form another particle-style attack and was forced to dodge. At that moment, however, he sensed something off. Rain? This rain? No. Oil. His instincts screamed danger. He immediately formed hand seals and slammed his palm onto the ground, summoning a massive rock arm to shield himself. But instead of fire, a flood of lava came pouring down. Onoki was caught off guard. He had assumed the black rain was one of Hiruzen's tricks. He hadn't expected that in just this short time, Koichi had already arrived. The searing lava surge swallowed the battlefield, giving him no time to think. He had no choice but to use particle style again. However, KK Tota consumed an enormous amount of chakra. Even for someone of his caliber, he couldn't afford to use them too many times. He had already spent a considerable amount dealing with Koichi earlier, and now, he was being forced to use it twice more. His chakra reserves were running low. If it were just Hiruzen, he still believed he could fight it out. But now, with Koichi also here. Even though there were several Hidden Stones village nin squads closing in from behind Koichi, Onoki knew they weren't fast enough to catch up. At best, they could help contain Hiruzen. Onoki ascended into the sky. This was the altitude he had determined to be safe. Through the rain and mist, visibility was poor, but through his sensing abilities, he could still discern many things. Kitsuchi's status was unknown. The elite squads that had followed him seemed to have been completely wiped out. Moreover, the number of Hidden Stones village nin along Koichi's path was significantly lower than elsewhere. That bastard had carved a path of slaughter straight through the battlefield. Without him to keep Koichi in check, Hidden Stones village nin had no one who could stop him. But the most terrifying thing was, Onoki noticed that many Hidden Lee village shinobi had small slugs attached to them. Someone was using Katsu's jutsu to continuously heal their forces. Tsunade? Impossible. According to Hidden Stones village's intelligence reports, Tsunade never left Hidden Lee village. As he surveyed the battlefield, witnessing the carnage, he understood, Hidden Stones village had lost. There was no point in continuing to fight. A heavy sense of sorrow weighed on his heart. Hidden Lee village's geniuses emerged one after another, suffocating the great nations. Just when it seemed like Hidden Lee village was finally declining, out came Minato Namikaze and Kanda Koichi. How was Hidden Lee village so damn lucky? He let out a deep sigh and finally spoke, enough. Hidden Stones village surrenders. Onoki, at this point, What leverage do you think you have to negotiate a surrender? Kleichi's voice was indifferent. Let's cut to the chase, drop your weapons and surrender unconditionally. As he spoke, he sealed away the tailed beast chakra. Onoki's so-called surrender was nothing more than an attempt to reframe his defeat. Since he had already made his stance clear, there was no need for further bloodshed, but Kleichi also wasn't going to let him off easy. After all, dust-style, atomic dismantling jutsu was still a major threat. Its wide area of effect meant that even Kleichi couldn't guarantee he could completely evade it if Onoki decided to go all in. Still, he needed to apply pressure. Hidden Stone's village still has many shinobi left. We are not completely exhausted. If you force us too far, we can always surrender to Hidden Cloud's village and fight alongside them. Onoki sneered. Even though he had conceded, he didn't want to appear weak, lest Hidden Leaf Village demand too much. What's there to talk about? Either surrender or fight. Threats? Kleichi smirked, drawing his blade. Go ahead. Join Hidden Cloud's village. But before you do, your son and your men will all die. Onoki's expression darkened. Kleichi continued, his tone casual. By the way, take a guess, who do you think is raiding your headquarters right now? Minato Namikaze. Onoki's face remained grim, but he wasn't an idiot. If he still didn't understand the situation, he wouldn't deserve to be Sushi Kage. Kleichi chuckled. Let me educate you. Minato has mastered a jutsu from our second Hokage. A jutsu that was the reason for his nickname, God of Speed. Both men knew the truth, neither side wanted to continue this battle. They were simply negotiating terms. However, what infuriated Onoki was this young brat wasn't backing down at all. Negotiations were supposed to be give and take. Unconditional surrender? Impossible. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed his anger. Hidden Stone's village does not fear death. Unconditional surrender is out of the question. If you push us too far, I'll take you all down with me. Onoki's voice was cold. Although his words were harsh, his tone had softened, a subtle indication that he was open to discussing terms. Onoki, empty threats won't work. Hiruzen cleared his throat and spoke up, here's the deal, I want Hidden Stone's village to send a force to attack Hidden Cloud's village's rear flank. Additionally, you will provide monetary and material reparations. If you can't accept that, then I'd like to see just how many Hidden Leaf Village shinobi your last particle style can take down. Silence fell over the battlefield. Were Hiruzen's demands excessive? Compared to Kleichi's hardline stance, not really. But if Onoki agreed, it meant declaring war on Hidden Cloud's village. He didn't want to, but looking at Kitsuchi, Roshi, and the future of Hidden Stone's village, he had no choice. Taking a deep breath, he made his decision. Fine. But you must return all our captured shinobi, including our Jinchuriki. Onoki, I've gotten quite used to using this Jinchuriki. I think I'll keep him. Kleichi smirked, holding up a swirling mass of tailed beast chakra. A killing blow, both to the body and the spirit. Onoki was so furious he nearly spat blood. Impossible. The Jinchuriki must be returned. Onoki, you were the ones who deployed your Jinchuriki first. Meanwhile, ours remained in Hidden Leaf Village. Now that yours has been captured, there's no way we're just handing them back to you for nothing. It's only fair. Hiruzen Sarutobi stepped forward, playing the good cop role. Onoki saw through their act, of course, but that didn't change his predicament. He had to get the Jinchuriki back, not because he cared much about their power, but because he absolutely couldn't let Hidden Leaf Village keep them. Otherwise, with Hidden Leaf Village holding 2 Jinchuriki, the Land of Earth would be in an even more precarious position. Fine, we'll pay a ransom for the Jinchuriki. And what about Kitsuchi? He's your own son. Surely he's worth a little extra? Isn't he already included in the list of captives? Had there ever been a generation of Hidden Leaf Village this shameless? Onoki felt utterly exasperated. Why did Hidden Leaf Village have to produce someone like this? If it were just Hiruzen Sarutobi, he would have accepted his conditions long ago. But now, even captives were being priced based on rank and status, absolutely ridiculous. If you want him for free, that's fine. Kleichi said casually. But, unfortunately, I accidentally chopped off his hand. With an injury like that, only our village's Tsunodaheim can heal him. Medical fees aren't exactly cheap, you know. Ugh. What's the difference at this point? Onoki's lips twitched. Finally, suppressing his frustration, he gave a curt nod. Fine. But that's my final offer. Chapter 140, the third Raikage must die. Onoki and the third Hokage simultaneously pulled out specially crafted signal flares. Boom, the flares from both villages exploded in the sky. 3, then 4 bursts in succession. This type of signal usually signified a truce, a call to cease hostilities. So, everyone around them came to a halt. Immediately after, several members of the Anbu followed suit, launching signal flares into the sky. All the ninjas saw the signal. Minato and his team, positioned behind the Hidden Stones village forces, were no exception. Minato, we won. We did it. Minato Namikaze let out a breath of relief. It was undeniable, Kleichi's strategy had worked flawlessly. Their rear assault struck deep, and the Hidden Stones village forces behind Onoki crumbled under the pressure. The defensive line formed by the Jonin and Shunin who had stayed behind fell apart in mere minutes. Simply put, aside from the first wave, Hidden Stones village never managed to form an effective defense at their rear. And the result? By the time Onoki returned, all that remained of his medical corps was a mere third of its original strength. His fists clenched tight in frustration. Damn it. Rage burned within him, but there was nothing he could do. Tsuchikage-sama, in war, each side fights with all they've got. I hope you won't hold it against us for going all out. Minato smiled gently. This time was different. Onoki hadn't interacted much with Minato before, Hidden Cloud's village knew him better. But from Kleichi, he had heard certain things. The man before him had inherited the second Hokage's Godspeed Jutsu. One glance at the devastated camp, and Onoki could already piece together what had happened. He sighed, I've fought in hundreds of battles and led countless wars. I thought I had a solid grasp on strategy and the battlefield. But I still fell into your trap. Not at all, you're the formidable one. If I didn't know as many jutsu as I do, I would have been dead at your hands. Kleichi approached from behind. Not that he was worried about Minato and the others. Given Hidden Stones village's current state, Onoki had only two choices, surrender or negotiate. Unless he wanted to see his village's Jonin ranks completely wiped out. So, Minato was perfectly safe. There was no way Onoki would dare attack him. Kleichi came over mainly to see if there was any money to be made. Ugh. Onoki didn't want to talk to Kleichi. How old was this brat, anyway? 17 at most. He himself was multiple times Kleichi's age, yet after clashing with him, he had nearly been blown to bits by the boy's explosive tag jutsus. As the Tsuchikage, he already felt humiliated enough. And now, this kid had come over just to rub salt in the wound. If only he could catch him, Onoki would have loved to teach him a lesson. His resentment festered. Ahem, Kleichi, I'll go find the third Hokage first. Alright, you guys go ahead. I'll handle the aftermath here. Kleichi nodded. Onoki looked over the scene, and his heart clenched. These were Hidden Stones village's elite. Now, many of their Jonin and Shunin had been killed, entire squads of medical nin wiped out. It would take years, if not decades, to rebuild. And this was just the camp, the losses on the battlefield were even greater. Furthermore, another problem, with so many medical nin dead, the injured Hidden Stones village shinobi had no way of receiving treatment. Tsuchikage-sama, your forces have taken quite a beating. Ugh. Onoki turned his head and sighed. Just say whatever you want to say. I may be old, but I'm not so frail that you'll talk me to death. Good, that makes things easier. What I mean is, Hidden Leaf Village, out of humanitarian concern, is willing to offer medical assistance. Do you need it? Kleichi coughed lightly and spoke. Onoki was stunned for a moment, then cautiously asked, is there a fee? Personally, I can waive my fee for your sake, but to heal everyone, I need the aid of Katsuhime. She is a sage of the Shikatsu forest, you wouldn't expect her to come all this way for free, would you? Ugh. Why not just ask for money outright? Did he really need to dress it up like this? Since when did summoning creatures charge an appearance fee? Onoki grumbled internally, but he knew that without Kleichi's help, Hidden Stones village's wounded would only continue to deteriorate. Money was nothing compared to lives. How much? Cheap. 1/10 of what we charged Kitsuchi-sama. That's not the same. Kitsuchi was your prisoner. This is medical aid. Also, didn't you just say you wouldn't charge your own fee? Fine, I'll lower it. How about 1/20th? Ugh. After some back and forth haggling, Onoki agreed to pay Kleichi 5 million ryo. That was the standard rate for an S-rank mission. However, the payment had to be made up front. Onoki fumed when he entered the treasury, only to discover that all of their explosive tags had mysteriously vanished. No wonder Minato had left so quickly. After scraping together barely over 1 million ryo, he had no choice but to issue one Hidden Stones village-backed promissory note for the remainder. Kleichi didn't hesitate. As soon as the money was secured, he got to work. But first, he made sure to clarify the situation. He would heal their wounded, but Hidden Stones village's shinobi needed to provide chakra. Since Onoki had already paid, he didn't mind sparing some chakra as well. Then, Kleichi amplified his abilities with the remaining tailed beast chakra he had, summoning a massive Katsu clone. After a brief discussion, Gotsuheim split into countless smaller slugs, dispersing among the wounded. Meanwhile, he absorbed chakra from several Hidden Stones village shinobi to replenish his yin seal reserves. Onoki wasn't blind to Kleichi's tactics. Aside from the chakra used for summoning, Kleichi hadn't spent any of his own chakra at all. He was using borrowed chakra for all the healing, stopping to absorb more every now and then. Onoki had already suspected that Hidden Lee Village's medical aid came from Kleichi. Seeing it firsthand, he couldn't help but sigh. This kid's medical prowess was already the best in Hidden Stones village. He had no idea how Tsunada's skills compared these days, but from their last encounter, Kleichi wasn't far behind her. The most terrifying part? Kleichi wasn't even a medical specialist, his primary discipline was kenjutsu. His talent was truly monstrous. Why didn't Hidden Stones village have a genius like this? Onoki felt bitter. He was pushing 60, and still, no one in Hidden Stones village had mastered particle style. At the very least, he would have settled for someone learning the lightweight or heavyweight rock jutsus, but not a single one. That brat from Hidden Leaf village had played him perfectly, knowing full well he wouldn't dare go all out. And truthfully, he wouldn't. Onoki sighed. While worrying about how to explain things to the daimyo, he also started thinking about how to deal with Hidden Clouds village. The third Raikage wouldn't be easy to handle. After a long while, Hidden Stones village's wounded had been stabilized. Joan and Kleichi, was it you who devised this strategy against us? Onoki had calmed down. A loss was a loss. Hidden Stones village had started this war against Hidden Leaf village. Losing and paying the price was only natural. But, he wanted to know who had planned it all. The third Hokage? No way. He knew Hiruzen Sarutobi too well. That man would never orchestrate such a bold maneuver. Take a guess. To put it plainly, we Hidden Stones village nin will keep our word. We'll step in to block the Hidden Clouds village, but how much we can hold them back and what kind of results we achieve will depend on how much effort Hidden Leaf village is willing to put in. And you're suggesting? Kleichi already understood Onoki's intentions. We work together to take down the third Raikage. If he makes it back alive, the Hidden Clouds village will be at war again in just a few years. That won't be good for anyone. Onoki made no attempt to hide his thoughts. Hidden Stones village's jutsu were completely countered by the Hidden Clouds village. In particular, the current Raikage, the third A, wielded the strongest spear, his one-finger nukite, against which every earth-style jutsu might as well be paper-thin. He had long dreamed of killing the third Raikage. Kleichi, on the other hand, had incredibly powerful wind style, could absorb chakra with saimata, and had speed that was nothing short of terrifying. In Onoki's eyes, Kanda Kleichi possessed every necessary trait to defeat the third Raikage. The third Raikage, huh? Kleichi fell into deep thought. From Hidden Leaf village's perspective, eliminating the third Raikage was certainly in their best interest as well. The man could go toe-to-toe with the Eight Tails in a direct fight. More absurdly, even the Eight Tails had failed to break through his defenses, his only injury had come from his own attack. In the original timeline, Onoki had sacrificed over 10,000 Hidden Stones village nin just to exhaust the third Raikage to death. That alone spoke volumes about his sheer durability. Hidden Leaf village wasn't as specialized as Hidden Stones village, but even they didn't have many who could go up against him. If the third Raikage made it back home, that would be a real problem. After a long pause, Kleichi finally said, I can't make the call on the third Raikage myself. I'll have to return and discuss it with the village and the Hokage. But rest assured, I definitely have an interest in dealing with him. Good. Go back and talk it over. This is a golden opportunity. Onoki said seriously. Kleichi's strategic planning was nothing short of brilliant. On one hand, he sent troops to launch a surprise attack, throwing the enemy's rear lines into utter chaos and deciding the battle in one swift move. On the other hand, he deliberately loosened the eastern front, forcing the Hidden Clouds village to stretch their forces thin. What good outcome could come from a lone army plunging deep into enemy territory? He was certain that Hidden Lee village hadn't just roped in Hidden Stones village as an ally, there was a good chance Hidden Mist village had been offered similar terms as well. And the moment news of victory from the western front reached them, those cowards from the Hidden Mist village would waste no time stabbing the Hidden Clouds village in the back. That was entirely in line with Kleichi's tactical style, as seen multiple times before. Still, you'd better move fast. Speed is everything in war. If you're too slow, the Hidden Clouds village might catch wind of this and retreat before we even get the chance. And when that happens, well, Hidden Leaf village won't be the one losing sleep over it. Kleichi had to give credit to Onoki. With just a bit of intelligence, the old man had pieced together nearly the entire scope of his strategy. The wisdom that comes with age, no doubt about it. He didn't want to let Onoki take control of the conversation, And truthfully, Hidden Leaf Village wasn't nearly as concerned about the third Raikage as Hidden Stone's village was. On top of that, Onoki wasn't just under strategic pressure, he also had hostages to consider. After all, Hidden Leaf Village still hadn't returned Kitsuchi and Roshi. The two of them wouldn't be sent back until the war was over. Until then, they were Hidden Leaf Village's guests. Do you think I'd go back on my word? I'll return tonight, and by tomorrow, we'll march on the Land of Lightning. That should put you at ease, right? Onoki was speechless. This kid refused to take even the smallest loss. What a pain to deal with. You'll have our answer before nightfall. As Koichi finished speaking, his figure flickered and disappeared. The Senju bloodline is truly something to be envious of. Onoki sighed inwardly. First, there was Hashirama Senju and Tobirama Senju. Now, there was Tsunade and Kandakoichi. From what he knew, the Senju clan had long been integrated into Hidden Leaf Village as a whole, and Kandakoichi was the result of their intermarriage policies. Yet even after 2 generations, the strength of the Senju still ran strong in his veins. That bloodline. It was terrifying. Chapter 141, Returning to School, Chunin Prep Course. Compared to Onoki's side, the Hidden Leaf Village camp was much more orderly. All injured shinobi were treated on the spot first. The lightly wounded were then sent back to the camp for further medical care. With Koichi shadow clones assisting, the pressure on the medical team wasn't too heavy. However, Koichi could already imagine what it would feel like when the clones dispelled. When that time came, he'd probably have to sleep for an entire day. As he entered the camp, he saw Asuma, Obito, and a few other kids standing at the entrance, looking dejected and downcast. Koichi had no time to chat at the moment, so he ignored them for now and headed straight for the third Hokage. When he arrived, he immediately understood why Asuma and the others were in such a mood. Hiruzen Sarutobi was counting the fallen shinobi. Although Koichi's strategy had allowed Hidden Leaf Village to achieve a swift victory over the Hidden Stones villagemen, reducing casualties to some extent, war always meant death. It wasn't just Genin or Chunin, even Jonin were not spared. For instance, the Akimaki clan had lost 2 Jonin to the enemy's focused attacks. This was war. Koichi remained silent, bowing deeply toward the fallen before stepping behind the third Hokage. Did Onoki say anything? He wants to take down the third Raikage and hopes we'll assist him. Koichi replied simply. The third Hokage didn't answer immediately. He pondered for a while before asking, how determined do you think he is? Probably very determined. After thinking for a moment, Koichi added, the third Raikage is too strong. The Hidden Stones villagemen don't stand a chance against him. And I think he's also worried about Kirin. We've been taking advantage of Onoki's lack of countermeasures, but now that he understands how to deal with it, he shouldn't be too afraid anymore. The third Hokage paused, then nodded. That being said, Hidden Cloud's village does have many lightning-style specialists, and with the third Raikage's power, it's understandable why Onoki is concerned. Koichi nodded. He thought the same. Even if Onoki had found a way to counter Kirin, Hidden Cloud's village had plenty of lightning-style users. If they adjusted their strategy and developed jutsus to complement Kirin, Hidden Stone's village would still be at a disadvantage in a direct confrontation. So, from Onoki's perspective, the third Raikage had to die. The third Hokage thought for a long time. After much deliberation, he turned and said, we should kill him. If we don't eliminate the Raikage, they'll recover their strength in a few years. A shinobi strong enough could indeed hold up an entire village. Hanzo, the third Raikage, they were prime examples. Understood. Then you should send someone to inform Onoki before tonight. I need to get some rest. Go rest, I'll handle things here. The third Hokage knew Koichi was exhausted. Right now, he might still be fine. But once his shadow clones dispelled and all the accumulated fatigue hit at once, even with the Senju physique, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. Take this sword back. I still prefer my adamantine staff. Yes. Koichi took the Kiba blades, turned to leave the camp gate, intending to talk to Asuma and the others before heading to rest. However, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed someone hiding in a tree, silver hair, a mask. The true successor of the White Fang. But that awkward presence was still there. He didn't pay it much mind and was about to walk away when Kakashi suddenly appeared in front of him with a body flicker. Can I ask you a question? Go ahead. Koichi was a little surprised but quickly composed himself. Kakashi hesitated for a moment before speaking. How do you perfect Kenjutsu? Different chakra nature transformations require different integration methods. I'm best at wind-style sword jutsus and Ganjutsu-infused swordplay, followed by water-style. As for earth-style, I haven't found a perfect method yet, maybe focusing on weight manipulation would help. Koichi didn't hold back. When it came to Kenjutsu integration, he was undoubtedly an authority in Hidden Leaf Village. That Kakashi had started delving into Kenjutsu was largely due to Kleichi's influence, so he was naturally willing to answer his questions. Besides, there was a reward in it for him. As for Earth-style swordplay, the best way to enhance it would naturally involve the lightweight and heavyweight rock jutsus. Unfortunately, Hidden Leaf Village didn't have any Earth-style jutsus of that nature. Developing them from scratch was as difficult as inventing the lightweight and heavyweight rock jutsus from nothing. Kakashi immediately understood that the Earth-style path was not an option for him. After thinking for a while, he continued, with lightning style, I can make my sword induce paralysis, but it doesn't feel perfect. Right now, it mostly stimulates my body's activity to enhance taijutsu and kenjutsu. As he spoke, he drew his sword and swung it. ZT. Lightning flickered along the blade, but it quickly dispersed. While it did enhance the sword's power, the effect wasn't ideal. You're not concentrating enough. Kleichi immediately saw the issue. Lightning chakra disperses easily, and though Kakashi was controlling it, his concentration wasn't precise enough. Kakashi was confused. But, the next moment, he saw Kleichi draw his sword. At first, there was no chakra on the blade. But in an instant, a highly condensed layer of water-style chakra enveloped it. This is water-style kenjutsu. Its effect is... Kleichi swung his blade. A thin, high-pressure water edge extended from the sword, instantly carving a long, narrow cut into the ground. Cutting? Kakashi was shocked. This effect was almost on par with Wind-style's cutting power. Water-style could do this? Have you heard of the third Raikage's Hell's Dab? It's called the strongest spear. Its effect is actually just highly concentrated lightning-style chakra. The same principle applies to sword jutsus. I think. I understand now. Thank you for your guidance. Kakashi bowed deeply. He knew that this way of thinking was even more valuable than just learning a jutsu. Hell stab. A sword. Perhaps the two were interconnected. Concentration. He walked away, deep in thought. Kleichi hadn't directly taught him Chidori, it wasn't suitable for Kakashi at this stage. It would be better to let him master lightning-style concentration first. After Kakashi left, Kleichi checked his system. The reward wasn't much, mostly insights into Chidori from Kakashi's understanding. Better than nothing. After all, he didn't have lightning-style chakra. No matter how strong Chidori was, it wouldn't be a main attack method for him. His primary focus remained on wind, water, ice, and Ganjutsu-based sword jutsus. His next research goal was the weight aspect of Earth style. But there was still so much to study. Hopefully, the war would end soon. Kleichi sighed. Once war broke out, research became impossible. Even education had to be put on hold. The third Raikage should just go die already. Kleichi walked toward the camp entrance. Asuma and the others had already recovered from their depression. One by one, they were training in the nearby woods, brimming with energy. But that was only because they had nothing else to do. Not just them. Kleichi had taken special care of all genin who had graduated within the past year, so most of them had survived. The majority of the casualties were older ninja. There was no helping it. Seeing that they were unharmed, Kleichi returned to his tent, first sending a message to Tsunade. Then, he took a deep breath and prepared to receive the judgment from his shadow clones. As expected. After enduring the burden of an entire war, if Kleichi hadn't activated his yin seal and strength of 100 seal, he probably would have passed out immediately. So, Naruto was seriously insane. He collapsed onto his bed and fell asleep the instant he hit the mattress. By the time he woke up, it was already the next day. Looking outside, the sun was blazing high in the sky. The rain had cleared. Kleichi squinted, his stomach growling, and pulled out a soldier pill to eat. Kleichi-sama, the third Hokage requests your presence once you're awake. Alright. The one standing guard was Mukai. It seemed the third Hokage had spoken with him as well. His chakra was much more restrained now, and Kleichi could faintly sense sealing jutsus on his body. So he had already learned the four-symbol seal. But that was an S-rank sealing jutsu. Mastering it would take serious effort. Keep at it. I know a thing or two about sealing jutsus. If you run into any problems, you can ask me. Kleichi spoke in a low voice. Mukai was secretly delighted. Know a thing or two? So modest. Considering Kleichi had managed to seal a Jinchuriki, his reputation in sealing jutsus was already well known. When Kleichi met the third Hokage, he discovered that there had been a slight change in plans. Onoki had offered 5 million ryo per person for Kleichi and Minato to accompany him. This was essentially an S-rank mission, with a generous payout. So, you sold us out? Ahem, what I mean is, You and Minato will head to Hidden Stones Village while we handle the front lines with hit-and-run tactics, maximizing their casualties without engaging Hidden Clouds Village in direct combat. The third Hokage looked slightly guilty. Kleichi had still been unconscious when he quietly accepted the mission on his behalf. That was a bit underhanded. But 5 million per person, 10 million in total. It wasn't exactly Hidden Leaf Village's money, but they'd still spend it in Hidden Leaf Village, right? If you round it up. It was still Hidden Leaf Village's. So, are you willing to go? If not, I'll have Kazekage figure something out and talk to Minato. Of course. I'm in. Kleichi didn't hesitate. 5 million. With Minato there, he could attack if needed and retreat if necessary. There was no real danger to his life. A risk-free deal. When will you depart? Now. I'll leave Asuma and the others in your care. They won't be needed anymore. I plan to send all ninja under 12 years old back to Hidden Leaf Village to rest. That includes them. Hidden Leaf Village was still strong. The third Hokage had abolished the 12-year-old graduation system, but during wartime, there had been no choice. Fighting one-on-one or one-on-three was indeed too much for them. But with only Hidden Clouds Village left as an enemy, there was no need for children to risk their lives. That's a good call. After thinking for a moment, Kleichi added, you should consider having them give lectures at the academy when they return, maybe even hold an exchange event. Those who are lacking in theory can go back and study more. Especially Obito. That guy was practically a walking loophole in Hidden Leaf Village's theoretical education. Now that things were settling down. Wasn't this the perfect time for remedial lessons? The third Hokage's eyes lit up at the suggestion. He thought for a moment, then nodded repeatedly. That makes sense. These kids only graduated early because of the war. Going back to continue their studies is completely reasonable. But will they resist the idea? No need to worry. After the exchange event, have Mikado Hamura give them a lecture and call it a Chunin prep course, a special program to train them into proper Chunin. Resist? Please. With all the methods from his past life, there was no way these kids would complain. The third Hokage nodded continuously. A Chunin prep course? Just the name made it irrefutable. And with Mikado Hamura's prestige, he was the perfect person to handle this. Brilliant. Chapter 142, Simple, I'll wipe out the 7 ninja swordsmen, huh? We're being sent back to Hidden Leaf Village? Why? Asuma was confused. According to their teacher, they had graduated early because the war needed more manpower. But now, even though the war wasn't over, they were being sent back to the village and wouldn't participate in the next battles. This didn't make any sense. The others were just as bewildered. Clearly, no one expected this outcome after being summoned. Return to the village. Out of all the early graduates, only 3 were exempt, Kakashi Hatake, Might Guy, and Kurenai Yui. Why don't Guy and the others have to go back? Asuma voiced his objection. In front of the third Hokage, he was probably the only one bold enough to speak so directly. The others were already intimidated by the Hokage's presence and wouldn't dare question him. They are Chunin. The next battle is against the Hidden Clouds Village. Their ninjas excel in speed and lightning-style jutsus. Most of you wouldn't be able to counter that, so there's no need for you to participate. The third Hokage was straightforward. At times, sugarcoating the truth wouldn't help. These children had graduated and were officially Genin now, meaning they already understood how the ninja world worked. Laying out the facts was the best approach. Asuma was silent for a long moment. Speed and lightning style. Wind style could counter lightning style, but the ones staying behind were all Chunin. Since he hadn't made Chunin, he obviously didn't qualify to stay. Do you understand now? Yes. He was frustrated but couldn't argue. Especially considering. During the last Chunin exams, as the team leader, he had been careless in gathering intelligence, falling into a trap that cost them the match. He had no right to complain about not being promoted. If only he had worked harder back then. Asuma, going back to the village isn't a bad thing. There's plenty for us to do, D-rank missions, training, studying. Honestly, we were a burden on the battlefield. Shishui spoke softly. He understood how much the higher-ups had done for them. To keep them alive in battle, their team leaders were always exceptionally strong, not just for the children from ninja clans, but even for those from civilian backgrounds. In reality, most regular Genin didn't have the luxury of being led by a Jonin. Usually, a Chunin served as the team captain, responsible for commanding and training the squad. So in comparison, early graduates like them had been given special treatment. But that also meant the Jonin leading them couldn't fight at full strength. For example, in this operation, without Obito and Rin holding him back, Minato Namikaze had fought at his full potential, and the 12-man team had torn through the Hidden Stones village forces with no opposition. Everyone understood the logic behind it. It wasn't easy to accept their own weakness, but seeing how calm Shizui was about it, the others started to feel at ease too. After all, if a genius who graduated at age 5 had no complaints, what right did they have to protest? Their mindset quickly shifted. Then you'll leave today. Once you're back in the village, Tsunade will handle your training. Yes, sir. So, you're using the Chunin exams as an excuse to send them back to school? Aboard a ship in the northern waters, Minato Namikaze looked amused. The idea of making Geinin return to the academy for more studies was ingenious. Exactly. These kids graduated too quickly. Their theoretical knowledge is full of holes. Take Obito, for example, he practically slipped through the cracks. If he doesn't pass the intensive review class this time, he's not getting out. Kleichi's lips curled into a slight smile. After chasing them for half a day, he finally caught up just before Minato and the others boarded the ship. Now, the two of them were in the same cabin. This ship was surprisingly grand. Onoki himself was aboard, along with only 2 Hidden Stones village escorts, some sailors, and just Minato and Kleichi. Clearly, Onoki had done this on purpose. Fewer people meant Minato Namikaze and Kanda Kleichi could feel more at ease, and at the same time, it allowed for a more open discussion. Knock, knock, knock. Kleichi exchanged a glance with Minato before getting up and opening the door. Looking down, just as expected, it was Onoki. Tsuchikage-sama. Cough, cough. No need to be so formal. Sit, let's talk. Onoki cleared his throat. It wasn't that he minded their courtesy, but with both Kleichi and Minato being much taller than him, if they stood while talking, he would have to keep looking up. And that was not only exhausting but also made it harder for him to maintain his authority. Yes, sir. Minato and Kleichi complied without hesitation. On one hand, Onoki was the Tsuchikage. On the other, he was also their employer, the man who had paid 10 million just to have them accompany him in battle. Regardless of their actual contribution, it was only right to show some respect. I overheard you two talking about a prep course. What is that? Onoki asked directly, showing no embarrassment. Kleichi was momentarily stunned. This guy. He is even shameless about eavesdropping. Don't misunderstand. I just happened to be passing by and overheard that part by accident. No misunderstanding at all. Minato smiled warmly but said nothing about the prep course. Instead glancing toward Kleichi, leaving the decision of whether to explain up to him. Kleichi considered for a moment. Hidden Stones village was one of the better villages at training shinobi. After the Second Shinobi War, they had recovered quickly, producing many competent Chunin and Geinin in a short time. What they lacked were Jonin. But the crash course was ultimately an educational method. After thinking it over, he spoke. Given our relationship, I'd personally love to tell you, but I have to consider my position, so. More money? Onoki instinctively asked in a low voice. I'm not that kind of person. Kleichi shook his head. True, you're an honorable ninja. Onoki forced himself to say it, though the words tasted bitter. As Tsuchikage, he had lied countless times, but calling this kid honorable. What a joke. When it came to money, Kleichi was nothing like the Senju clan. If anything, he was more like a full-fledged businessman, an incredibly shrewd and cunning one at that. Still, Onoki knew that classified information like this wouldn't be given up easily, so he had prepared in advance. Kleichi understood. Onoki's real goal was the Chunin exams. After a brief pause, he nodded. Hidden Leaf Village is always open to exchanges with other villages. However, I'm just a Jonin, I don't have the final say. This would need to be discussed with the Hokage. Of course. A smile crept onto Onoki's face. The Hokage, huh? He wasn't fooled. Hiruzen Sarutobi's interest in leading Hidden Leaf Village had faded. Once this war ended, the 4th Hokage would take over. And given the current situation, that 4th Hokage would most likely be Tsunade. And he was Kleichi. Tsunade's relative, the strongest genius of the new generation. His words were just a formality, he was merely being polite. After that, the three chatted casually for a while. Onoki didn't bring up anything serious, and the mention of the Chunin exams had been more of a spur-of-the-moment idea. His true objective was something else. After waiting for a long time and seeing that Kleichi wasn't initiating the real conversation, Onoki finally lost patience and asked, "What do you know about the 3rd Raikage?" To be honest, not much. You know how it is, I'm only in my teens, and Minato's only in his 20s. Kleichi straightened his posture. This was the real business. Onoki remained silent for a moment, then adjusted his chair, raising his seat a little higher before speaking. The 3rd Raikage is a master of both ninjutsu and taijutsu. His defensive jutsu, the lightning-style armor, is said to be impenetrable, and his offensive jutsu, the one-finger Nukite, is devastating. He is also incredibly fast. My particle style barely affects him. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Kleichi. In a way, Kleichi and the third Raikage were very similar. However, Kleichi's abilities were more diverse and unpredictable, and their records were comparable. The third Raikage couldn't defeat Onoki, and Onoki also had no real way to deal with the third Raikage. Just like his battle with Kleichi. Onoki sighed, reminiscing about past battles before continuing. As far as I know, there was a time when the Eight Tails rampaged in Hidden Cloud's village, but the third Raikage single-handedly subdued it. His lightning-style armor is so strong that even a tailed beast couldn't break through it. If we Hidden Stone's village nin were to fight Hidden Cloud's village alone, I'm not confident we'd win. When someone is truly determined to kill their enemy, they'll find a way. But Onoki wasn't at that point yet. And Kleichi understood why. Wind style counters lightning style. Everyone knew this, and Kleichi excelled at wind style jutsus. He also knew more about the Eight Tails rampage than Onoki did, or Orochimaru had orchestrated that mess. In fact, part of the Eight Tails cells were still sitting in his lab. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that the third Raikage's lightning-style armor had a weakness. Onoki's reason for being here was clear. He wanted to see what he was getting for his 10 million. After a brief moment of thought, Kleichi replied, "To be honest, I've never fought the third Raikage, so I can't say for certain whether I can break through his defense. But if we have enough people, he can be worn down." Worn down? Onoki fell silent. So it still came down to exhausting him? If that was the case, then his 10 million had been a waste. That's all? Not exactly. With the three of us, we can wear him down. But the real issue is the rest of the Hidden Cloud's village forces. Kleichi said matter-of-factly. As expected of Hidden Leaf Village's genius. I have no more doubts. Onoki's smile returned. 3 people exhausting him. He had clearly misunderstood. The 10 million was still worth it. Then, he asked, I have a personal question. Just how badly did you crush Hidden Mist Village? Why did they retreat so quickly? They didn't tell you? Kleichi chuckled. I wiped out the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. 4 of them are still alive, but 3 were let go by me, along with their swords. What? Considering that Onoki had seen 3 of those swords in Hidden Leaf Village. That made 6. Damn Hidden Mist Village. They had been hiding the truth. The reports he received only mentioned Kleichi's speed and strength but completely omitted the battle details. Those fools. They were useless, just like the second Mizukage. If it weren't for him sacrificing himself to take down his teacher, Hidden Stone's village wouldn't have been suppressed by Tobirama Senju for so many years. Of course, it wasn't just my effort. So, in exchange for letting them go, you took their swords and had them attack the Land of Lightning's rear? Well, since you already figured it out, there's no need for me to explain. Kleichi smirked. Hidden Mist Village's lack of transparency had worked in his favor. Thanks, Hidden Mist Village. Chapter 143, 1 sentence equals 1 million? Sir, we've spotted the coast of the Land of Lightning. Good. Hold position here for now. Onoki gave his orders. At present, only a small portion of Hidden Stone's village's forces had arrived. This amount of manpower was nowhere near enough to cut off Hidden Cloud's village's retreat. On the contrary, if they engaged prematurely, they risked being encircled and wiped out. The Raikage wasn't a fool. Onoki himself hadn't committed his full strength. Why would the Raikage deploy all of his shinobi to the front lines? What if Onoki launched a surprise attack on Hidden Cloud's village instead? There was no alliance between them. This was purely a matter of convenience. Both villages saw an opportunity and agreed to attack Hidden Leaf Village together. Besides, even if an alliance did exist, it wouldn't necessarily mean anything. Between nations, trust was scarce. As long as the benefits were tempting enough, betrayals happened all the time. Even if Onoki sincerely claimed to be an ally, the Raikage still wouldn't let his guard down. The same applied to Hidden Mist Village. However, the third Raikage probably never expected that someone would choose this exact moment to launch a full-scale invasion of the Land of Lightning. Who could have seen this coming? Just a few days ago, everything was going well. They had even occupied the Land of Grass. But in a matter of days, they were beaten so badly by Hidden Leaf Village that they couldn't even tell which way was north. In the end, they had no choice but to surrender in disgrace. Onoki let out a sigh. Kleichi stepped out of the cabin, gazing at the shimmering sea and the distant landmass. The sight lifted his spirits somewhat. He glanced at Onoki and said, Tsuchikage-sama, I believe your priority shouldn't be invasion or territorial expansion, but rather finding and nurturing a suitable fourth Tsuchikage. It'd be quite pitiful if you were still holding this position at 70 or 80 years old. Could he be any less blunt? Onoki had no words. Did he not want to cultivate a fourth Tsuchikage? The problem was, there wasn't one. He couldn't find a suitable candidate. The few decent ones he had, this guy had taken care of them already. Onoki suppressed his anger. 5 million ryo. He couldn't afford to lose his temper. If you don't have a successor, then your training methods must be flawed. I'm an expert in Hidden Leaf Village's education system. While I can't divulge Hidden Leaf Village's secrets, I can certainly customize a plan for you. How much? Talking about money ruins relationships. But your flying jutsu. That's something I'm quite curious about. If it's about jutsu, forget it. Onoki's face darkened. Lightweight rock and heavyweight rock jutsus were classified secrets in Hidden Stones Village. Only those he personally approved could learn them. And this outsider wanted in? Dream on. Then money it is, 5 million. Kleichi sighed. He was just testing the waters anyway. It's not like a few words would actually get him a Kage-level jutsu. 2 million. And if you just spout nonsense, I won't acknowledge it. Onoki snorted coldly. Alright, I'll share my thoughts. Kleichi nodded. With Kitsuchi and Rashi in his grasp, he wasn't worried about Onoki reneging on their deal. Just then, Minato overheard their conversation and stepped onto the deck. Haven't you noticed? Your Hidden Stones Village nin's education has serious issues. Your Earth-style jutsus are strong, but you're lacking in other areas. Onoki fell into deep thought. Hidden Stones Village never forced students to master Earth-style. It was just that Earth-style was the strongest, so most people naturally chose it. However, it was true that they lacked diversity. If Hidden Stones Village had more Wind-style and Lightning-style users, would they really fear jutsus like Lightning-style, Kirin so much? He started taking the discussion seriously. You have a solution? Given the current situation, I think your education system must be very rigid. You need to encourage children to explore and experiment. Cultivating their analytical thinking is more important than just teaching them jutsu. You make a valid point. Onoki sighed but didn't say much more. The logic was clear. But it wasn't feasible. Hidden Stones Village simply didn't have enough variety in its jutsu repository. And changing their mindset was too abstract, it wasn't practical. Kleichi understood this. So, seeing that Onoki had no further response, he continued, the Ninja Academy's curriculum is insufficient for many students. Minato, would you agree? Huh? Oh, yes. But it depends on the individual. Not everyone can grasp things quickly. Minato was caught off guard. He hadn't expected Kleichi to bring him up, but it was true, back in the academy, he always felt the lessons weren't enough. However, he was well aware that his own talent was exceptional, so his experience wasn't universal. Kleichi, on the other hand, was speechless. Minato was too honest. But at least Kleichi had no intention of scamming Onoki. That's why elite education is necessary. Establish a special class for young genin with potential, give them more courses, teach them advanced knowledge, and train their analytical skills. A gifted class? Onoki murmured. Hidden Stones Village's academy taught students as a single unit, there was no such thing as a gifted class. But after hearing Kleichi's words, he felt this might actually work. Hidden Stones Village had no shortage of average genin and shunin. What they lacked were powerful, well-rounded jonin. Elite education. True to its name. It was meant to produce elites. After pondering for a while and finding no flaws in the concept, he asked, why are you telling me all this? Aren't you afraid Hidden Stones Village nin will become stronger? Hidden Leaf Village is the strongest. We fear no other village's challenge. You three banded together to attack us, and yet we dismantled you one by one. Only through competition does progress occur. Kleichi stood with his hands behind his back, exuding confidence and pride. Onoki had mixed emotions. The boy was barely in his teens, yet his understanding of these matters surpassed even that of many older generations. With such talent, his pride was well earned. And his words. They truly resonated. Competition drives progress? Minato fell into deep thought. At first, the statement seemed questionable, but upon reflection, looking at the history of the ninja world, the peak of jutsu development was during the era of the second Hokage and his contemporaries. Why? Because during that time, names like Hashirama Senshu, Tobirama Senshu, and Madara Uchiha instilled a deep existential crisis in every village. They couldn't afford to stagnate, they had to push forward constantly. But now, compared to the past, Hidden Leaf Village had indeed weakened. Aside from Hidden Clouds Village, the other villages seemed content to rely on old jutsus rather than innovate. Meanwhile, Hidden Leaf Village continued to advance. The reason was simple, Hidden Leaf Village, being the strongest, faced constant threats from other villages. Hidden Leaf Village had pressure. Onoki clearly realized this too. Thus, he felt even more assured that his earlier decision was correct. Hidden Stones Village nin children had to venture out, to interact with Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Sand Village, rather than isolating themselves in their own village. With that in mind, he exhaled deeply, pulled out a scroll, and signaled his guard for a brush. Then, scratch, scratch, scratch. He penned a formal IOU. 4 million Ryo. Not only that, but after finishing, he sincerely said, the phrase competition drives progress struck a chord with me. I'll add another million just for that wisdom. I'll send it over later. Kleichi chuckled. One sentence, 1 million Ryo. Worth it. Onoki began contemplating the next steps. Naturally, he wouldn't discuss these matters further with Kleichi, but Kleichi had already obtained what he wanted, not just money but also the reward from the system. Mission completed, education model guidance, evaluation, good, reward, Earth style, Greeky style jutsu, just good? No excellent rating? Earning a reward like lightweight and heavyweight rock jutsus was proving to be incredibly difficult. Of course. This jutsu was valuable enough, but it wasn't something he particularly needed. Kleichi understood that the plan he proposed wasn't perfect. The so-called elite education was essentially just the shinobi world's version of fast and slow learning tracks. While it would certainly produce many elites, this model would also create internal issues within Hidden Stones Village. Meanwhile, Hidden Leaf Village didn't actually need to fear or be wary of Hidden Stones Village at all. If Hidden Leaf Village could only maintain its strength and dominance by ensuring others fell behind, wouldn't that make him no different from Danzō? At the very least, he stood on the shoulders of giants. He might not surpass the legendary Four Bears, but he should at least strive to be better than Danzō. A goal should be set high. Kleichi gazed out the window toward the distant land. Are you sure about this? Minato didn't quite understand. From his perspective, Kleichi seemed to be genuinely helping Hidden Stones Village, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There's no problem. Everything I gave him is outdated. Minato suspected that Kleichi had a deeper plan in mind. He trusted that Kleichi wasn't acting recklessly. Hidden Stones Village's ships arrived one after another. Moments later, the fleet began advancing toward the coastline. This wasn't a proper harbor, and there might be reefs or underwater currents, but for shinobi, such obstacles weren't an issue. Soon, they neared the shore. However, at the same time, the Hidden Clouds Village shinobi also spotted their movements. With thousands of Hidden Stones Village nin packed onto so many ships, there was no way to conceal their approach. In fact, neither Onoki nor Kleichi had any intention of hiding it. Most of Hidden Clouds Village's main forces were currently deep within a land of fire. Even if they received word immediately, it would take them at least half a day to return here. And that's assuming no one interfered. If Hidden Leaf Village decided to delay them, it would take more than a full day. That was more than enough time for Hidden Stones Village to deal with the Hidden Clouds Village shinobi stationed here and construct a solid defensive line. Of course. Against Hidden Clouds Village, an Earth-style based defense line wasn't the most effective, but it was better than nothing. Right now, waves of Hidden Stones Village nin leaped from their ships, rushing toward the shore. Kleichi glanced at the scene but made no move to intervene. This wasn't his mission. Onoki sighed. If Kleichi and Minato were willing to step in, this battle would be far easier. Unfortunately, the two of them wouldn't help so easily. 10 million Ryo, just enough to hire them to deal with the third Raikage. Of course. If they actually managed to kill the third Raikage, then the cost would be well worth it. Compared to that, the rest of the Hidden Clouds Village shinobi were insignificant. Onoki narrowed his eyes, calculating the Hidden Clouds Village shinobi's current situation. By the time the third Raikage received this information, it would take at least half a day. If they wanted to retreat here, it would take even longer. That meant plenty of time to set up traps. Onoki had fought in countless wars and had clashed with Hidden Clouds Village many times before. He knew exactly how to deal with those lightning-wielding brutes. After securing a defensive line, he swiftly issued orders to prepare the battlefield. Kleichi and Minato stood at the side, watching without a word or any intention of getting involved. If anything, they wouldn't mind if Hidden Stones Village lost a few more shinobi. Chapter 144, Hidden Mist Village? Might as well change the name. Yagura-sama, are we really going to attack the Hidden Clouds Village? Of course. But given the third Raikage's temperament, if we strike now, he'll definitely retaliate as soon as he recovers. Can Hidden Mist Village withstand that? Chukiki was deeply concerned. As a jonin of Hidden Mist Village, he wasn't entirely unaware of the village's decisions. The assault on the Land of Lightning wasn't just a war fueled by clan greed, it was also part of their pledge to surrender to Hidden Leaf Village. However, He was well aware of the price of attacking the Land of Lightning. Hidden Cloud's village was war hungry. Those people were lunatics who acted without regard for consequences. From a pure power standpoint, Hidden Mist Village had no chance of actually defeating them. If they provoked the Hidden Clouds village, were they expecting Hidden Leaf Village to come to their rescue? From his perspective, attacking Hidden Clouds village was not a wise decision. But Yagura didn't see it that way. He simply smiled and gazed westward. Chukiki, do you remember when I had the Anbu sell a piece of intelligence to Onoki? Yagura paused for a second, then shifted his gaze toward the Land of Lightning. If everything went as expected, Hidden Leaf Village should be in a full-scale war with Hidden Stones Village by now. Chukiki suddenly understood. The Hidden Clouds Village had been unstoppable lately. Rumor had it that Hidden Leaf Village had been continuously retreating, shrinking the front lines all the way into the Land of Fire. That had never happened before. So, Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stones Village were already fighting. Then shouldn't we be attacking Hidden Leaf Village instead? That's certainly an option, but I believe Hidden Leaf Village will win. By taking action now, we'll be in a better position to explain ourselves to Hidden Leaf Village later, and we can still reap some benefits. Yagura spoke with confidence. Of course. His reasoning wasn't just based on intuition. He simply had faith that that person would come up with some unfathomable strategy to defeat that old fox, Onoki. Victory would likely belong to Hidden Leaf Village in the end. Given that, attacking Hidden Leaf Village in direct defiance of their agreement, especially when their elite forces were stationed there, would be a foolish move if the ambush failed. Yagura thought to himself. We're almost at the shore. Prepare for battle. No. Yagura-sama, something strange is happening. Many Kutonin seem to be moving west. Chukiki was stunned. His sensory abilities were strong, allowing him to detect the enemy's movements earlier than most. Clearly, this was a force meant to guard against Hidden Mist Village's ambush. Yet now, they were rushing west, seemingly to support another battlefront. What was going on? Even Yagura was momentarily confused, staring blankly. That doesn't make sense. Could it be that Hidden Leaf Village is making a desperate move and abandoning the western front against the Hidden Clouds Village? Is Hidden Leaf Village's Hokage insane? Chukiki was incredulous. If Hidden Leaf Village abandoned the western front, Hidden Stones Village would completely overrun them. Based on everything he knew about Hidden Leaf Village, that was impossible. Hard to say. That person is capable of anything. Of course, there is another possibility. But I really hope it isn't the case. Yagura trailed off cryptically. But Chukiki understood. The other possibility. Hidden Leaf Village may have already defeated Hidden Stones Village's western forces in just a few days and was now redeploying troops to encircle the Hidden Clouds Village, forcing them to divert reinforcements westward. If that were true, Hidden Leaf Village's strength would be terrifying. No time to overthink it. Find a stronghold weakened by their troop withdrawal and attack it. Understood. Hidden Clouds Village. Raikage-sama, you've returned just in time. Did Hidden Mist Village really launch an ambush? The third Raikage smirked coldly. Those two-faced rats. The moment I saw Hidden Leaf Village's numbers didn't add up on the front lines, I knew they weren't fully committing to the eastern front. No. Yes, Hidden Mist Village did attack, but it was just harassment and small-scale skirmishes. Annoying, but not significant. You should take a look at this. The Anbu captain handed him a report. The third Raikage frowned. He had returned from the front lines precisely because he felt something was off about Hidden Mist Village's actions and wanted to oversee things personally. His original plan was to personally crush those traitors. But after reading the report, he fell silent. Hidden Stones Village Nin? Why are they here? Raikage-sama. Has Onoki lost his mind? Instead of crushing Hidden Leaf Village while they were vulnerable, he teamed up with them to attack me? The veins on the third Raikage's forehead bulged in fury. He had expected Hidden Leaf Village to have a hidden trump card, but he always assumed it was on the Hidden Mist Village front. This turn of events made no sense. Hidden Mist Village's betrayal didn't surprise him at all. That village was a chaotic mess, full of warring clans. No decision they made was truly shocking. But Hidden Stones Village was essentially Onoki's personal fiefdom. Under his leadership, the village had grown into a powerful force, and Onoki was no fool. He knew that Hidden Leaf Village was still the strongest village. Why would he stab him in the back? Raikage-sama, I have a theory. We've been making such rapid progress in the east. Could it be that Hidden Leaf Village secretly pulled back some forces to deal with Hidden Stones Village, which is why they withdrew some forces? The third Raikage knew that in moments of crisis, staying calm was crucial. Rather than raging, he focused on thinking things through. After a moment, he nodded. Go on. If that's the case, then could it be that Onoki has already lost? The Anbu captain voiced his theory. Even he found it hard to believe, but it was the only possibility that made sense. Onoki. Lost? The third Raikage turned to stare at his Anbu captain, as if the man had lost his mind. Hidden Stone's village had spent years preparing for this war, while Hidden Lee village had been weakened by conflicts with Hidden Sand village and was fighting on multiple fronts. By all logic, they should have been at a disadvantage. Assassination tactics? Nonsense. That was Onoki they were talking about. Even he, the third Raikage, had no surefire counter to particle style and light-heavy rock jutsus. He couldn't think of anyone in Hidden Lee village capable of assassinating Onoki. Yet, he couldn't explain why Onoki would suddenly turn against him. After a few seconds, he gave up trying to make sense of it. Now was not the time for hesitation or doubt. Use the heavenly transfer jutsu to send me to the front lines. No matter what, the situation has changed, we must retreat. The heavenly transfer jutsu? But, Raikage-sama, this jutsu is meant for sending messages. We can just relay the information, there's no need to take such a risk. The captain of the Anbu was stunned. Send the Raikage? If anything went wrong, the Hidden Clouds village would be finished. I must go to the front lines. Otherwise, I might make his own decisions. And Hidden Lee village may not simply let them go. If I don't go, our losses will be even greater. The third Raikage's voice was firm and unwavering, but, follow orders. Yes. The heavenly transfer jutsu was meant for sending messages, not people. This would be the first time. As he performed the jutsu, his hands trembled. If something went wrong, even death wouldn't be enough to atone. Meanwhile, at the front lines, Hidden Lee village's forces had pulled back significantly, while the Hidden Clouds village continued their layered advance. Under Orochimaru's meticulous battlefield control, and Killer Bee had yet to realize anything was amiss. Orochimaru, I just got word, the Western Front is victorious. Minato is now with Koichi and Onoki, preparing to cut off the Land of Lightning's border routes. When did this happen? Orochimaru shot up from his seat. Even he couldn't help but lose his composure. Victory? And Onoki is joining the assault on Hidden Clouds village? Impossible. It happened too fast. The battle was won yesterday. Last night, Onoki returned to his country to gather reinforcements. He should already be at the Land of Lightning's border by now. Jiraiya was elated. They had actually done it. He didn't know exactly what role Minato had played in the battle, but achieving victory so quickly meant that everyone had contributed significantly. Now, the key was the Eastern battlefront. Excellent, excellent. Orochimaru was just as excited. He had expected a longer stalemate. Moments ago, he had even considered pulling back further, but beyond this point lay villages in the Land of Fire. If they let the Hidden Clouds village advance any further, the consequences would be unpredictable. Now, there was no need to hesitate. The time for counterattack had come. What about Koichi's group? They said nothing, left the decision to us. That makes sense. We know this battlefield better, and they don't understand the current situation. If they act rashly, it could backfire. Wait. We'll let the Hidden Clouds village retreat first, then pursue them. Orochimaru suppressed his excitement. Now was not the time to strike, but they could start surveillance. He quickly issued orders, mobilizing the Hyuga, Aburame, and other clans specializing in reconnaissance to closely monitor the Hidden Clouds village nin's movements. However, before long, he received a startling report. The third Raikage had returned. Thankfully, they hadn't launched their attack yet. Otherwise, they would have been in serious trouble. The third Raikage was teleported back? Does the Hidden Clouds village have a jutsu similar to the Flying Thunder God? Jiraiya was incredulous. No, it's impossible for it to be like the Flying Thunder God. My guess is that only the third Raikage could withstand the backlash. His lightning-style armor and sheer physical resilience are on another level. Orochimaru licked his lips. Having witnessed the third Raikage's battle against the Eight Tails, he knew just how terrifying that man was. Even if he and Jiraiya fought together, victory wasn't guaranteed. He would love to capture him for research. Unfortunately, that was nothing more than a dream. With the third Raikage back at the front lines, Hidden Lee village immediately pulled back their forces. Father, why are you back? I was confused. Hadn't his father gone to prepare for a possible Hidden Mist village ambush? What was going on now? The third Raikage glanced outside, his expression darkening. In a cold voice, he said, "Before I left, I told you not to push further in. But now, you've advanced this deep into the Land of Fire. Do you not realize the risk of Hidden Lee village or another force cutting off our retreat? Impossible. Hidden Lee village is locked in a bloody battle with Onoki in the west, and we're pressing them on the front lines. How could they have the resources? I had no idea about the looming crisis." The third Raikage let out a cold chuckle. No resources? Onoki's forces have already reached the Land of Lightning's border. If I had arrived any later, Orochimaru would have led an encirclement. What? A's eyes widened in shock. Onoki at the Land of Lightning's border? Impossible. Listen to my orders. Full retreat. Abandon anything non-essential. Our primary objective is to return to the Land of Lightning. Yes. Although the third Raikage had slowly begun delegating some power to, he was still the Raikage. His prestige among the ninja was unmatched. At his command, the entire force sprang into action. Within moments, the entire Hidden Clouds village encampment was moving northward in retreat. However, the moment they moved, Hidden Leaf village also sprang into action. Orochimaru was cunning. The third Raikage was powerful, but Orochimaru had no intention of facing him directly. Along the retreat path, the forests were filled with giant snakes and swarms of parasitic insects. Thick fog blanketed the area. This was the hiding in mist jutsu. At that moment, the Hidden Clouds village nin had the same thought as Onoki earlier: the Hidden Mist village was utterly useless. Even their signature jutsu had been stolen by Hidden Leaf village. What was the point of them even existing anymore? As they advanced, A grew increasingly frustrated with Orochimaru's tactics. His methods seemed weak and non-lethal, but they were exasperatingly effective. No matter how much damage they took, it didn't matter, they just couldn't catch the Hidden Leaf village forces. It was pure, unrelenting harassment. Chapter 145, You are now the fourth Raikage. The hiding in mist jutsu. Silent killing jutsu. Have they used these before? The third Raikage's expression was grim. Not at all. This is my first time encountering it. Damn it. That Orochimaru, always scheming. And those Hidden Mist Village nin are pathetic. Hidden Leaf Village has stolen all their signature jutsus. I was furious. He had tried to strike back, but the enemy had mastered the Hidden Mist Village's jutsus to such an extreme degree that, in some ways, they wielded them even better than many actual Hidden Mist Village nin. Since the start of this war, this was the first time he truly understood what it meant to be one of the three legendary Sannin. As a true Raikage, you must learn when to unleash your anger and when to restrain it. The third Raikage's voice wasn't as harsh as usual, but that only made A even more uneasy. His father, Tsuda, is still young. If there are things he doesn't know in the future, I hope you'll guide him. Raikage-sama, surely it hasn't come to that yet. Tsuda looked startled. The Raikage's tone was filled with finality, like he was making arrangements, entrusting the village to them. Father, I can't lead everyone back safely. A quickly declared. Hearing this, the third Raikage finally smiled. As he ran, he said, Good, A Raikage must always have such resolve, no matter how dear the situation, you must have the courage to break through. Yes. A made a silent vow and then surged forward, leading the way to clear a path while protecting the others. Killer Bee followed closely behind. The third Raikage didn't stop them, in fact, he barely acted at all. However, Orochimaru's attacks only grew fiercer. But Hidden Leaf Village's ninja never pressed for prolonged engagements, they struck and disappeared immediately. Though A and B were fast, they didn't dare chase too deeply. As a result, they couldn't inflict any real damage on the Hidden Leaf Village forces, while their own troops kept suffering injuries. Even with medical ninja providing support, the overall pace of their retreat had slowed significantly. Raikage-sama, together, we can still make it back to the Land of Lightning, right? After all, our losses in this war haven't been too severe. You're just as naive as A. According to the intel from the Anbu, Onoki himself has arrived in the Land of Lightning. That means he is determined to carve a piece out of Hidden Clouds Village. The third Raikage was fully aware of the situation ahead. Orochimaru's current tactics were solely meant to drain their chakra and stamina. The real crisis wasn't in the Land of Fire. The closer they got to the Land of Lightning, the stronger the resistance they would face, and the more exhausted the Hidden Clouds Village nin would become. But he didn't dare stop. If the Western battle had truly ended and Hidden Leaf Village's forces from that side arrived, then the Hidden Clouds Village forces would be completely finished. And Killer Bee's efforts weren't wasted. At the very least, they had cleared out many of Orochimaru's summoned snakes, easing the pressure on their rear ranks. However, once they left the Land of Fire, the real danger began. Hidden Leaf Village launched a full-scale interception, and behind them, a new ninja force appeared. The Hidden Leaf Village police force had now entered the fray, led by none other than their captain, Fugaku Uchiha. The pressure on the battlefield intensified. B. Got it. A and B moved in unison, their bodies suddenly crackling with intense lightning. Their speed was incredible. Before the enemy could react, they were already upon a Hidden Leaf Village Jonin, who barely managed to erect a water formation wall. But, slash. A single hand chop sliced through the water barrier. Lightning style, lariat. The next moment, a figure flashed past. Before the Hidden Leaf Village Jonin could even register what had happened, A and B had already moved behind him, their arms hooked around his neck. Then, crack. A sharp snapping sound echoed. The two of them pressed forward, continuing their rampage. Should we intervene? Let them go. Stopping them would come at too high a cost. Let Onoki deal with them. Jiraiya shook his head and issued a retreat order. A and B were stronger than he had anticipated. Their synergy was impeccable, and when they fought together, their combined strength was terrifying. There was no need for Hidden Leaf Village to engage in a head-on clash. Onoki and his Hidden Stones Village forces were still ahead. If Hidden Leaf Village could weaken the Hidden Clouds Village forces even slightly before they reached them, that was enough. A and B didn't rush to break through the defensive line. Instead, they hunted down stragglers. Though the Hidden Leaf Village ninjas retreated swiftly, they still suffered casualties, a testament to A and B's overwhelming strength. However, such bursts of power came at a cost. Their stamina drained rapidly, and by the time they had cleared a sufficiently safe path, both were panting heavily. Pulling off another such feat was no longer an option. Yet, ahead lay the most formidable obstacle. The Hidden Stones Village forces, led by Onoki himself. A vast array of Earth-style defenses stretched out before them, so imposing that it made one question which village's border they were really standing at. The third Raikage stepped forward. Father. I can still push through one more time. I will lead everyone back to Hidden Clouds Village. A spoke through gritted teeth, suppressing his exhaustion. Beside him, Killer B remained silent, but stood firmly by his side. That's enough, eh? The third Raikage raised his fist, seemingly ready to strike, but after a moment, he instead placed a firm yet gentle hand on A's shoulder. A's eyes reddened. He lowered his head. I'm sorry, father. My recklessness has led Hidden Clouds Village to this situation. This isn't your fault. You've done enough. Now, it's my turn to clear the path for you all. I'd like to see just how many forces Onoki has prepared to stop me. A. From this moment on, you are the fourth Raikage. The third Raikage cast off his robe, revealing his battle attire. Then, he charged forward alone. The third Raikage truly lives up to his title as the strongest Raikage. Kleichi muttered in admiration. A village's leader paving the way for his people. It wasn't unheard of, but never had it been as awe-inspiring as this, one man standing at the front, exuding the might of an entire army. His speed wasn't overwhelming. Yet, the sheer pressure of his presence put every Hidden Stones Village ninja on high alert, even Onoki himself. Kleichi, Minato. You two better not go back on your word. Onoki's expression was grave. Of course, we'll help you stop the third Raikage. Kleichi emphasized the words help you heavily. If Onoki expected them to directly confront the third Raikage, he was sorely mistaken. The Raikage was likely fighting with a resolve to die in battle. Anyone who tried to block him would face his final, all-out assault. Onoki nodded. He cast the lightweight and heavyweight rock jutsus on the two of them, allowing them to move at extreme speed, even fly. He understood well. The main force against the third Raikage was still himself. But Kleichi and Minato were crucial for stalling him. Without them, landing particle style would be nearly impossible. Onoki, you think this is enough to stop us? The third Raikage was now only a few hundred meters away. Behind him, a force of Hidden Clouds Village nin followed closely, while his entire body surged with silver lightning. It's enough. Onoki hovered in the air, sighing. In truth, I never wanted to fight you. But I lost. So I have no choice but to accept Hidden Leaf Village's terms. Don't listen to his nonsense, friends from Hidden Clouds Village. Hidden Leaf Village has always been a peaceful nation, we only fight defensive battles. This was all Onoki's idea, it has nothing to do with us. A voice suddenly interrupted from among the Hidden Stones Village ranks. The third Raikage and Onoki were both stunned. Onoki hadn't expected Kleichi to speak up so boldly. And the third Raikage? He was completely dumbfounded. What was going on? Did Hidden Stones Village have Hidden Leaf Village overseers now? The next moment, he saw two figures emerge from behind the earth walls. They appeared to be in their early 20s and wore Hidden Leaf Village headbands. More importantly, they didn't look like prisoners. In fact, Onoki himself looked more like their prisoner. Even after Kleichi's blatant contradiction, he hadn't dared to argue back. The third Raikage was utterly baffled. How had Hidden Stones Village, one of the 5 great villages, surrendered this completely? However, his confusion lasted only a second or two. In the next instant, his entire body crackled with lightning as he activated his lightning-style chakra mode at full power. Then, Like a streak of light, he charged toward the earthen wall. He didn't care what was going on between Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Leaf Village. One thing was certain, they weren't going to just let them leave. So, he'd fight first, and figure things out later. Minato, don't go all out. Just focus on survival. I know. You be careful too. The two whispered to each other. Then, shing. Minato flicked a kunai. After forming several hand seals, the single kunai multiplied into thousands, blotting out the sky as they rained down upon the Hidden Clouds Village forces. Among them, a few were marked with his signature Flying Thunder God seals. Onoki recognized the jutsu. But, even his own Hidden Stones Village nin wouldn't be fazed by such an attack. Meanwhile, Kleichi had yet to make a move, seemingly waiting for the third Raikage to get closer. However, at that moment, a blue light flared. The third Raikage's expression hardened. His hands came together, 4 fingers clenched into a blade. A highly condensed lightning-style edge formed, an attack that could slice through nearly anything. He slashed downward. Hiss, a sharp noise rang out. Lightning clashed, energy froze. A and B, behind him, rushed to assist, but, the moment they were about to attack Kleichi, he took to the sky. Did he just fly? They were momentarily stunned. Then, a lava-style attack from Tsuda brought them back to reality. Ninjutsu rained down upon Kleichi, yet, sheets of paper emerged, forming wings. Combined with his lightweight rock enhancement, Kleichi soared even faster into the air. Meanwhile, Minato teleported beside the third Raikage. In his palm, a Rasengan surged forward. Blood splattered through the air. The third Raikage thrust his fingers toward Minato, aiming to trade injuries. But in an instant, his opponent vanished, reappearing far away. A kunai? His breath caught as his mind raced, and in a flash, he understood everything. A space-time jutsu based on kunai? Senjudogi Rama's jutsu? Get out of here. The third Raikage's voice was urgent. Hearing this, A turned his head, his pupils immediately contracting in shock. Blood was dripping from the third Raikage's hand. Someone had actually broken through his lightning-style armor? Impossible. Get the hell out. At first, the third Raikage had thought that with Onoki bringing so few men, he could clear the path and hold the rear without necessarily dying. But now, he understood completely, Onoki had come specifically for him. A, B, and the other Hidden Clouds village nin didn't matter. Chapter 146, Flying Thunder God is too dirty. A, go. Tsuda's breathing grew rapid. He knew he could no longer afford to hold on to false hopes, the enemy came fully prepared. The third Raikage didn't chase after them. Instead, he turned and charged toward the Hidden Stones village nin, only to be met by Onoki. Dust style, detachment of the primitive world jutsu. A cylindrical beam shot forth. The third Raikage dodged, but several Hidden Clouds village nin behind him weren't so lucky. 3 or 4 of them perished. But right now, the third Raikage didn't have the luxury to care about his subordinates. He had to carve a path for the others to escape. However, the next moment, a flash of a blade arrived once more. Having suffered from it once, the Raikage understood the essence of that strike. The so-called blade light was actually highly concentrated, almost solidified wind-style chakra. But the most terrifying part wasn't the blade, it was the light. It was both Ganjutsu and an invisible wind blade, sharper than any chakra-infused weapon. Even his strongest defense had been breached. All the Hidden Stones village nin were overjoyed, but Kleichi himself wasn't satisfied. He and Minato had joined forces, each using their most powerful wind-style jutsus, yet all they'd managed was barely piercing the defense, leaving only a minor wound. Such a small injury. It probably wasn't even enough to hinder the third Raikage's movements, and that was when he wasn't mentally prepared. If he had been ready, the result would be even worse. Onoki understood this too, so he wasn't feeling optimistic. And now, the third Raikage had already closed in. Onoki couldn't stop him if he ignored the safety of his fellow Hidden Clouds village nin. He was already almost at the front of the earth wall. Boom. An explosion rang out. A trap of explosive tags was triggered. But, it didn't work. It couldn't even break through his defense. The third Raikage rampaged across the battlefield, deliberately stepping on traps to clear a safe path. Now that's badass. Kleichi couldn't help but admire him. This man was truly a beast. But right now, they couldn't afford to let him keep bulldozing through traps. Kleichi turned, and one of his blades transformed into the same Ota, wrapped in bandages. Then, whoosh! A sharp gust howled. The third Raikage heard it. He pulled out a kunai with his left hand and turned to block. But, the incoming slash only skimmed past him, it wasn't a direct clash. The next instant, the blade in Kleichi's left hand flashed like lightning, aiming for the Rukonga's kunai-wielding hand. His face grew grim. He realized the lightning-style armor on his left hand had inexplicably lost a large amount of chakra. Not good. He made a snap decision. With a flick of his wrist, the kunai surged with lightning chakra, vibrating at high frequency as it shot out. If that kunai landed, it would be deadly. But the key point, he switched hands and used a side with more chakra to block the blade, while simultaneously jabbing his right hand, 2 fingers extended, straight at Kyoichi. It was a 1-for-1 trade. Boom. His 2-finger jab met with Minato's Rasengan. Though it didn't injure him, it interrupted him for a crucial moment. In that instant, a thin wound appeared on his arm. Then, in the blink of an eye, both attackers vanished. Flying Thunder God. The third Raikage took a deep breath. His mind flashed back to the jutsu of Tobi Ramasenju. He had guessed earlier that it might be that jutsu. Now it was clear, the enemy hadn't just marked their kunai with a teleportation formula, there was also one on the silver-haired ninja himself. That's how they could close in so quickly. In other words, getting close to him meant facing 2 attackers at once. And just as he finished fending off Kyoichi and Minato, Onoki's particle style came for him again. This time was different. Previously, no one had obstructed him, so he could easily dodge Onoki's particle style. But now, he had just blocked an assault from Kyoichi and Minato. Raikage-sama. Tsuda turned back and saw the Raikage within the range of the particle style. He panicked. If I hadn't knocked him aside with a punch, he might have been skewered by several earth spikes already. Go. I didn't look back. No matter what state his father was in now, his mission was to get everyone back home. They had to break through the Hidden Stones Village Nin's defenses. Lightning-style chakra flared across his body. Killer Bee followed close behind without turning back, charging along the path the third Raikage had cleared toward the earth wall. Over a dozen Hidden Stones Village Nin squads came to intercept them. But their ninjutsu was useless against the lightning chakra mode, and their ninja tools and explosive tags were blocked by the Raikage's lightning armor. Though it took some hits, nothing was fatal. In just seconds, he was already at the base of the earthen fortress. Lariat. Though just a single strike, it carried most of the chakra in his body. One karate chop, the earth wall collapsed with a thunderous crash. But behind it, multiple layers of defense still stood. 2 to 3 dozen Hidden Stones Village Nin squads surged forward, an overwhelming force of enemies and jutsu. A and B were momentarily at a loss. Onoki turned, ready to use his particle style to finish A off, but a kunai shot out from beneath the earth. A high-frequency vibrating lightning kunai, it rendered any defensive jutsu completely useless. Onoki had to redirect his attention. The next moment, the place his particle style had just struck, the third Raikage burst out from the earth. At the last moment, he had stomped down with tremendous force on the ground, softened by the earlier explosion, creating a pit to dodge the particle style's range. Now, the third Raikage was covered in dirt and looked battered, but he was still alive. And more importantly, he was charging forward again, straight into the Hidden Stones Village Nin defensive lines. Kyoichi and Minato's attacks? He blocked the chakra-draining blade, and ignored everything else. His wounds multiplied. But he had bought time. In the blink of an eye, he was already at the foot of the earth wall. Then, he crashed into it like a human cannonball. Boom. The wall crumbled. The third Raikage tore into the Hidden Stones Village Nin ranks. His fingers were the sharpest spear, no defense could stop them. In just a few breaths, several Hidden Stones Village Nin were already dead, most of them were Jonin. Kyoichi and Minato rushed after him, but their speed was clearly a step behind. By the time they caught up, the Raikage had already plunged into the crowd. In that brief window, he had slaughtered dozens of Hidden Stones Village Nin, throwing their formation into chaos. Taking advantage of this, the main Hidden Clouds Village Nin forces broke through from another gap, clashing with the remaining Hidden Stones Village Nin in a chaotic melee. Far in the distance, battles could still be seen between Hidden Stones Village Nin and Land of Lightning reinforcements, but Hidden Stones Village's forces were limited. As long as they could break through the second line and coordinate with the incoming lightning ninja from inside, escape was very much within reach. But the real difficulty lay in the second defensive line. Most of them were already running on fumes, especially A, Killer B, and Odai. The three had been leading the charge from the start, burning through the most chakra. Bro, I'll take the front. You fall back. Killer B's twin blades flashed like lightning, and Tailed Beast chakra surged to the surface. B, you bastard. You better survive. Get stronger, then come back and kick my ass. A's tears streamed down his face. He and B weren't brothers by blood, but their bond ran deeper than blood ever could. No words were needed, they already understood what the other intended. B was going to borrow the power of the Tailed Beast. to carve a path for everyone else. There was no other choice. Had already burned through the last of his chakra, just breaking through the earth wall and forcing his way into the defense line had been his final push. This war. He was paying the price for his recklessness and lack of caution. Of course, dumbass, jackass. Killer Bee cursed in rhythm as he slashed through the enemy ranks. At the climax, Tailed Beast chakra erupted, and his blades began to vibrate at high frequency, crackling with lightning. Lightning style, super vibrato lightning blade. Both swords struck together, no earth-style jutsu could stand against them. Around him, the Tailed Beast cloak formed a protective barrier, and octopus-like tails sprouted from his back. Those tails were weapons too. The other Hidden Clouds village nin followed in his wake, expanding the breach step by step, retreating in the direction of a land of lightning. Kyoichi, you guys still not making a move? Onoki was growing frantic, and furious. Those two were clearly just dragging their feet. He wasn't sure exactly how strong Minato Namikaze was, but he knew all too well the kind of power Kyoichi had. If that guy went all out, his speed should be way faster than this. Cough cough, Minato hasn't fully recovered his chakra yet. Kyoichi said, shooting Minato a look. We're about to extract the third Raikage. Minato was speechless. Really? Shifting the blame again? Give me a break. Wasn't this your idea in the first place? Still. Minato didn't say anything more. Letting the third Raikage kill a few more Hidden Stones village nin was perfectly aligned with Hidden Leaf Village's interests anyway. Besides, if they had pulled him out too soon, Onoki might have just left the Raikage behind and focused all his forces on taking down A and Killer Bee. None of us are saints, don't act like we don't know each other. In the next instant, Kyoichi's speed suddenly doubled. Gate, open. In a blink, he was already in front of the third Raikage. Minato appeared beside him a moment later. Kyoichi used Saimata to drain part of the Raikage's lightning-style chakra, while Minato coated his palm in wind-style chakra to shield it, then placed it directly onto the Raikage. Lightning chakra was suppressed by the wind. The Raikage tried to dodge, but, in the next second, his world spun. A weightless, disorienting sensation overtook him, and by the time his vision cleared, he was already in a different location. Flying Thunder God Jutsu, they'd teleported him far from the battlefield. It was a special kunai Minato had planted earlier. The third Raikage was dazed for a moment. Then coughed up blood in rage. Flying Thunder God, what the hell? What was Tobirama Senju thinking when he invented this nasty, cheating-ass jutsu? He yanked the kunai from the ground and crushed it in his fist. Then, charged straight back in. No choice. And the others were still caught in the midst of the Hidden Stones village inn. If he left now, the enemy would just turn around and swarm them. Even if he survived. Without his comrades, Hidden Clouds village had no future. What would be the point? Onoki had been elated at first. You actually teleported him away? Brilliant. But, a second later, he spotted the third Raikage not far away, tearing back into the fray. Why didn't you send him farther? That would have taken more chakra, and time. Wouldn't have worked. Ugh. Onoki gave a long sigh. Fine, I'll pretend that makes sense. Still, even in that brief moment, he had room to make his move. Dust style, detachment of the primitive world jutsu. He aimed it stealthily at A. That kid was completely drained of chakra and stamina, dodging was basically impossible. Onoki. Don't you dare. The third Raikage moved like a bolt of lightning. This time, he truly didn't care about Kyoichi or Minato. Saimata? A sword? Screw it. He slashed a long cut down his own arm, blood spraying, but he didn't slow down, charging into the heart of the Hidden Stones village inn. Along the way, he hurled multiple kunai and explosive tags, all aimed at intercepting Onoki's strike. When he reached them, he saw A hurled far back from the blast, while a few of Killer Bee's octopus tails had been blown off, nearly disintegrated. He made it in time, he saved A. Chapter 147, Deathly Black Lightning, A Flamboyant Funeral. A was hurled through the air by Killer Bee in the next instant. Bee's tails rapidly grew out behind him, his body spinning like a top. Twin blades. The 8 tails. Every weapon he could possibly wield was now in play, carving a brutal, blood-drenched path through the chaos. Before he even hit the ground, Bee had already fought his way to him. It was Nodai who caught A mid-fall and pulled him to safety. Killer Bee really is in sync with the 8 tails. Once the seal was released, the 8 tails actually stepped in willingly. That's insane. Kyoichi silently marveled at the sight. Still, it worked out just fine. He never intended to kill the 4th Raikage anyway. The 3rd, yes, he had to die. But if the 4th died too, Hidden Clouds village would have no successor, and there'd be no one left to counterbalance Onoki or Hidden Mist village. Anoki. The third Raikage roared in fury, both hands formed into blades as he tore through the crowd in search of his target. There wasn't a single Hidden Stones village shinobi who could take even one hit, not even the Jonin. Anoki now saw firsthand what happened when the third Raikage was enraged. He was utterly berserk. Against Keiichi and Minato, he no longer bothered blocking, only dodging. His signature one-handed thrusts now crackled with jet-black lightning. His wounds were multiplying. So were the Hidden Stones village casualties. Anoki wanted to tear him apart then and there, but he knew if he jumped into the fray himself, he'd be outmatched in close combat. Particle style was his only option. And that would mean taking his own men down with a target. If sacrificing a few of his own could guarantee the death of the third Raikage, maybe it'd be worth it. But if his people died and the Raikage lived, he couldn't afford that gamble. So he could only pray Keiichi and Minato would step it up. But they already were. Wind-style sword jutsus, Flying Thunder God, Rasengan, all unleashed in succession. By any measure, that level of effort should have been worth their price. But the third Raikage was prepared now. They couldn't get close like before. Of course, that was because he hadn't used the 7-day roar yet. That move shaved off his lifespan, no point wasting it on something as trivial as money. 5 million ryo wasn't worth dying for. Meanwhile, the effects of Anoki's light-heavy rock jutsu were wearing off. Keiichi's speed started to decline. Anoki flashed down beside him and slapped a hand to his back. Keiichi suddenly felt light as air. Faster, far faster than before. Get moving. Tsuchikage-sama, you wound me. That jutsu I mentioned, it's a forbidden one, I really shouldn't, I'll pay more. Anoki gritted his teeth. He knew it full well, Keiichi was giving effort. But not everything. No ice style. No sudden burst speed moves. Not even those flying explosive tags he'd used before. Clearly, Keiichi hadn't gone all out yet. For the unbreakable friendship between Hidden Lee Village and Hidden Stones Village. Even a forbidden jutsu must be used. The words had barely left his mouth when Keiichi vanished with a sharp whoosh. The very next instant, the third Raikage saw a blur flash before his eyes. Is that Kanda Keiichi? He twisted to evade, but this time, the man's speed had doubled. No sword. No flashy jutsu. Just a single kick. Boom. So fast. The moment Keiichi's foot collided with a third Raikage, a deafening shockwave erupted. A single thought flashed through the Raikage's mind, and in the next instant, he was sent flying. Heaven's spear foot. Not just that, his foot had been coated with a layer of ice, neutralizing the lightning-style armor. The Raikage's signature one-handed thrust didn't even land, rendering it useless. The kick itself didn't do much damage, but the sheer force of it sent the third Raikage hurtling through the air, unable to regain control. And there was something else in that kick. Something that completely threw off his coordination. His limbs flailed wildly. At the same time, flying straight toward the direction he'd been kicked, a glowing orb of light. Dust-style, detachment of the primitive world jutsu. In a desperate moment, the Raikage hurled an explosive tag. Boom. The blast detonated, blasting him down toward the ground. Minato froze for a heartbeat, then immediately teleported to intercept, trying to knock the Raikage into the particle-style zone. But the Raikage had already regained partial control over his body under the effects of chaotic body rush. Body flicker. In the blink of an eye, he was behind Minato. So fast. Minato's heart skipped, he vanished with the Flying Thunder God. The Raikage struck empty air. But he'd bought himself precious time. His body was beginning to adapt to the rhythm of chaotic body rush. And then, Keiichi was on him again. Twin blades unfolded like the wings of a hawk. Skr. A high-pitched wind whistled as he closed in. The Raikage tried to dodge, but Keiichi was enhanced by ultra-light heavy rock jutsu, combined with his own body flicker speed. The Raikage simply couldn't keep up. The twin blade slashed, the first sliced through the lightning armor. The second struck the same spot, tearing open a bloody wound. And then, a third strike. Keiichi spat out a blade of ice infused with intense wind chakra. The Raikage shifted just in time to block it, but a kick. Infused with chakra enhanced strength and chaotic body rush. He was sent flying once more. Frantically, he gathered chakra to use lightning style to stabilize himself, but his body coordination was scrambled again. No. More precisely, it was that damn kid who helped his body recover, so when he tried to operate it like before, it threw him off again. The Raikage panicked. If this continued, it would be over soon. But glancing into the distance, he saw it. The majority of the Hidden Clouds village nin had already broken through the defense lines. The rest were retreating under Killer Bee's cover. Even though Hidden Stones Village still had a third line of defense, there were already Hidden Clouds Village reinforcements behind it. They were safe now. The Raikage grinned, and then, boom. Black lightning exploded beneath his feet, using the surge to counter Kyoichi's momentum. The dark lightning burst outward, forcing both Kyoichi and Minato back. But just then, Onoki's particle style came from a cunning angle. The Raikage had used a lightning boost to accelerate, but he wasn't as skilled in aerial combat. Onoki, a master of the skies, had calculated his trajectory perfectly. Despite the unpredictability, the particle style still landed a partial hit. One of the Raikage's arms was disintegrated. And yet, he grew more frenzied, surrounding himself with a sphere of black lightning, a deadly domain neither Kyoichi nor Minato dared to approach. Then he charged, straight into the ranks of the Hidden Stones Village shinobi. A moving storm of black lightning, a death tempest, devouring all enemies in its path. And worse, he was carving a path straight back toward the main Hidden Clouds Village forces. Stop him. Onoki was panicked. They already lost too many. If the third Raikage escaped, it wouldn't just be a tactical loss. When the Hidden Clouds Village retaliated later, how would he defend? The Hidden Stones Village shinobi launched jutsu in waves. Earth pillars. Earth prison. Tectonic fissures, anything to slow the Raikage for even a moment. Onoki and the others were desperate, willing to pay any price to kill the third Raikage. Kyoichi didn't pursue. He knew, the third Raikage wasn't going to survive. This wasn't the Edo Tensei version. His chakra had limits. And lightning-style armor, the one-handed thrust, and black lightning were all massive chakra drains. Even a Kage-level shinobi didn't have infinite reserves. He was burning through his life. A worthy opponent. Kyoichi murmured. Waging war comes with a price. Hidden Leaf Village isn't afraid of conflict, but neither can we blindly forgive invaders. And honestly, we've already given enough face. If we'd used sealing jutsus. He trailed off and shook his head slightly. They hadn't used any sealing jutsu. Because if they had, no matter how powerful the Raikage was, a combination of Seimata, wind-style sword jutsus, and ice-style could have cracked the lightning armor. Then Minato could have sealed him. For simple sealing was complex and time-consuming, maybe too long for the battle. But simpler ones, evil sealing method, 5 elements seal, could activate almost instantly. Even the slightest interference in a Kage-level battle could be fatal. The third Raikage would have lost much sooner. So yes, Kyoichi had held back. Raikage-sama. Killer Bee saw the Raikage cutting a swath through Hidden Stones Village shinobi and rushed forward to support him, only to see the Raikage turn back and charge back into the Hidden Stones Village ranks. The shinobi who'd been surrounding Bin now scattered to stop the Raikage. Fool. His chakra now comes from his life. Even if you save him, he'll be on the verge of death. A deep voice echoed in Killer Bee's mind. The power I gave you isn't invincible. Be rational. What matters now is survival. The Eight Tails respected the third Raikage. He was one of the few who had ever bested him in direct combat. And now, his actions were worthy of that respect. But, there was no saving him now. If Bee ran in, he'd just die too. As much as the Eight Tails hated being sealed inside a human, it had to admit, this Jinchuriki was one of the few it could actually talk to. It didn't want to die just yet. Even if it could revive later. It would take time. And who knew if it wouldn't get captured again? Times had changed. The shinobi world was full of powerful enemies now. The Sage of Six Paths was gone. Why gamble on an uncertain future when it might be worth trying to live in peace with this idiot? Killer Bee had no idea what the Eight Tails was thinking. He hesitated, but when he saw the Raikage doubling back, clearly trying to give him an escape window, he understood. The Raikage didn't want him to stay and die. If you can't make a decision, then let me decide for you. The Eight Tails chuckled coldly. Then its power surged. Killer Bee, now fully transformed, bolted toward the land of lightning. He didn't look back. The black lightning still raged. But, the third Raikage's chakra had weakened. His speed had dropped noticeably. Still, none of the nearby Hidden Stones Village shinobi could stand against him. Eventually, even the earth-style stone walls proved too tough. He could no longer break through. Layer after layer of earth and stone entombed him. From within, only the dull thuds of crumbling rock could be heard. No one relaxed. Not until the sound finally stopped. Only then did Onoki give the order to dispel the jutsu. Inside, the third Raikage had collapsed. The black lightning could no longer flicker. Even a warrior as mighty as the third Raikage could not escape death. Orochimaru murmured quietly. He and the others had followed, prepared to intervene. But now, it was clear they wouldn't be needed. If not for Kyoichi and Minato, the third Raikage might still be alive. Jiraiya paused, Then added, the Hidden Clouds village have always been aggressive. If the third Raikage had survived, within 5 years we'd be at war with them again. By then, his son would be even stronger. You think I care how he was killed? Of course not. Jiraiya replied. I'm just convincing myself. When you start a war, you can't complain about dying. He rose silently, and walked away. Chapter 148, Look all you want, but keep your hands to yourself, he's dead. Finally. He's really dead. The Hidden Stones village nin were on the verge of breaking down. The third Raikage alone had slaughtered more shinobi than all the other Hidden Clouds village nin combined. Onoki stood amidst the field of corpses, cold sweat trailing down his forehead. And that was with Koichi and Minato stepping in. If they hadn't had Hidden Leaf Village's help, just how disastrous would the battlefield have been? He couldn't even imagine it. Now, staring at the blood-soaked ground, his heart was heavy with mixed emotions. They'd eliminated a major threat. But at the cost of so many Hidden Stones village nin lives. Was it worth it? Onoki let out a quiet sigh. Whether it was worth it or not, did it even matter anymore? After all, it wasn't like he had wanted to go to war with Hidden Clouds village. Hidden Leaf Village had defeated them first, he just had no other choice. If they were going to lose something anyway, better to lose it in a way that had some value, right? That thought made the bitter pill a little easier to swallow. Though the third Raikage had fallen, none of the Hidden Stones village nin dared approach his body. They instinctively backed away, clearing a path and a wide open space. Onoki descended into it. Koichi and Minato approached from behind. Tsuchikage-sama, what do you plan to do with the third Raikage's body? Minato asked. About that. Onoki hesitated. Destroying the body completely might provoke Hidden Clouds village too much, but sending it back. It's not like they'd be grateful for it either. A dilemma. After a moment of silence, he turned to Minato and said, I plan to return the third Raikage's corpse to Hidden Clouds village. But it wouldn't look good for Hidden Stones village nin to do it directly. Perhaps you too, no thanks. We were just asking. Koichi cut him off. Onoki, that old schemer, always trying to squeeze everything he could out of people he thought were too nice. The two of them were pretty alike in that regard. Minato had just casually brought it up, and this guy immediately tried to push the whole job onto them, as if they hadn't already risked themselves to take down the Raikage. Onoki was momentarily speechless. He knew this wouldn't be easy. If he actually sent someone, there was a good chance A, still furious, might kill them outright. Unless he went himself. But wouldn't that look even more like provocation? After a long pause, Onoki sighed. Looks like we'll have to leave the body here. Hopefully it won't be dragged off by wild animals before the Hidden Clouds village nin arrive. That doesn't seem right. Minato said hesitantly. Leaving the corpse exposed like this would be a sign of disrespect. Birds and beasts could destroy it, and beyond that, a Raikage's body held many secrets. Someone of his level would be a prime target for all sorts of opportunists. If the corpse went missing, Hidden Clouds village would likely blame Hidden Leaf village without hesitation. In that case, I must trouble the two of you to handle it. After all, your village's second Hokage died at the hands of Hidden Clouds village. It's war, tit for tat. Onoki coughed lightly. His goal, of course, was to get Minato to go. With the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, who could touch him? If Koichi hadn't been here, he might have pulled it off. But with him, that kid doesn't move without knowing there's a rabbit in the bush. It should have been a win-win situation for everyone, and yet somehow, it had become awkward and tense. Tsuchikage-sama, business is business. We're on a paid mission. Killing the third Raikage wasn't part of our original contract. If we deliver his body back, doesn't that count as a new job? And shouldn't that job be S rank at the very least? Koichi said, ready to haggle. Did Onoki really think he'd get something for free? S rank missions weren't cheap. Onoki chuckled. But Hidden Stones village nin have already offended Hidden Clouds village, we don't mind doing so again. There's no need to return the body. You're the ones insisting. Fair point. Then if we deliver the body, it has nothing to do with Hidden Stones village. Koichi replied, pulling out a sealing scroll. Onoki frowned. He understood what Koichi was doing. That little brat was trying to publicly separate the act from Hidden Stones village, to earn goodwill for himself and Hidden Leaf village. If Onoki offered payment, he'd probably be willing to go along. But, like he'd already admitted, whether he paid or not, sent the body or didn't, Hidden Clouds village wouldn't be reconciling with Hidden Stones village anytime soon. Whether war broke out now or later, conflict was inevitable. He said in a low voice, if the fourth Raikage wants a fight, Hidden Stones village won't shy away. The body. You from Hidden Leaf village can return it. Consider it thanks for your help. Fine. Koichi nodded, sealed the corpse, and gave Minato a look before heading toward Hidden Cloud's village's side. Behind them, Orochimaru frowned slightly. That brat actually intends to return the body? What's his angle? He didn't understand. Hidden Cloud's village right now was a boiling pot of oil, any outsider would be splashed with scalding heat. Hidden Leaf Village was no exception. But more than that, Orochimaru just didn't see the point. Would Hidden Cloud's village's attitude really change? Even if the body was returned, once they regained strength, they'd still invade the Land of Fire. That was the nature of conflict between shinobi villages. And yet, those two idiots were actually going. After a moment of hesitation, Orochimaru quietly followed them. Kyoichi, I'm sorry. This was my idea. I'll go alone. With the Flying Thunder God, I should be able to retreat safely if things go south. Minato looked apologetic. It had been his suggestion, and now Kyoichi had to come with him. He couldn't help but feel guilty. Kyoichi shook his head. Even if you hadn't said anything, I still would have returned the body. No matter what our history with Hidden Cloud's villages. The man is dead. Let that be the end of it. You really think that way? Sort of. Only half true. Kyoichi wasn't that noble. The real reason he wanted to return the body was to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. Like a certain Zetsu. Or maybe Orochimaru. The third Raikage's body was worth a lot, but the type of research it enabled fell into the forbidden category. If Black Zetsu got hold of it, it would only strengthen Madara's side. As for Orochimaru, the third Raikage's power came from mastering the lightning armor and his hell stab jutsu, both advanced jutsu. His physical strength came purely from intense taijutsu training. So the body itself didn't hold much scientific value. For Orochimaru, it would be a waste of time unless he wanted it for Edo Tensei. Returning it to Hidden Cloud's village. At least that would plant some seeds of goodwill. Minato seemed relieved by Kyoichi's words. Still, his opinion hadn't changed. One person is enough to deliver the body. You should stay outside and keep watch. No way we're using our real bodies for something this dangerous, we're both going in with shadow clones. Kyoichi shook his head. Just as he was about to continue, he sensed a sudden chakra disturbance beneath them. A moment later, a figure emerged from the ground. I knew you wouldn't just charge in blindly, Kyoichi-kun. Came a raspy voice. It was Orochimaru. Of course he showed up. Kyoichi sighed internally. Honestly, he wasn't sure if Black Zetsu would appear, but he'd been sure Orochimaru would. And here he was, proving him right. The guy had even followed them himself. Orochimaru licked his lips and said, Kyoichi-kun, I have a small request. You want the corpse? No. I just want to look at it. His voice was hoarse. Minato frowned, clearly disapproving, but Orochimaru was his elder. Then again, Orochimaru and Kyoichi kind of treated each other like peers. He twitched slightly and looked to Kyoichi. To his surprise, Kyoichi was quite straightforward. Without a word, he pulled out the sealing scroll and released the third Raikage's body. Orochimaru crouched down in excitement. Look all you want, but no touching. Kyoichi said flatly. He didn't bother hiding his suspicions. Orochimaru chuckled and pulled his hands back. He examined the body carefully, then let out a sigh. No wonder they called him Hidden Cloud's village's strongest Raikage. His physique is terrifying. And yet, even someone like him couldn't escape death in the end. On land, there really aren't many who could beat him. Kyoichi said. Orochimaru picked up on the unspoken implication. Not on land, sure, but in the air, or underwater. That was another story. Thinking it over, he had to admit it made sense. In the skies, Onoki's mastery of light and heavy style gave him an overwhelming advantage. Unless someone came up with a way to match that speed and flight ability, they'd be left eating his dust. As for underwater, ever since Tobirama Senju's death, who could possibly match the current Kanda Kyoichi? Thank you. Orochimaru nodded slightly, then lost interest in the third Raikage's corpse. As strong as the third Raikage had been, he was still within the bounds of what a human could achieve. There were plenty of ways to deal with someone like him, difficult, sure, but not impossible. And if it's not impossible to kill him, then what's the point in studying the body? With a quiet sigh, Orochimaru quickly composed himself and looked up. At first, I was worried you two might be reckless. But now I see, I was overthinking things. Since you're already here, Orochimaru-sama, why not come with us? Kyoichi offered. You two go ahead. I'll stay outside to cover you. Orochimaru declined with a shake of his head. After all, he had once released the Eight Tails himself. If Chuki recognized his chakra, things could get ugly. Kyoichi and Minato each created a shadow clone. Their clones carried the sealing scroll and made their way toward Hidden Cloud's village. Meanwhile, the real bodies stayed behind with Orochimaru, waiting for feedback. Orochimaru sat in thought. Minato looked like he wanted to speak but hesitated, and Keiichi glanced at the two of them, then broke the silence. You guys noticed the Eight Tails Jinchuriki from the Hidden Clouds village? When the third Raikage showed up, I wasn't really paying attention to the rest. Minato muttered, frowning slightly. But I think that Jinchuriki completely unsealed the tailed beast, didn't he? When I arrived, the two of you were already fighting the third Raikage. But the Jinchuriki had clearly entered full release mode, drawing completely on the Eight Tails power. Orochimaru added. He wasn't aware of the full context, so after giving his basic assessment, he looked to Keiichi for clarification. I've fought Rashi before, the Four Tails Jinchuriki. He'd been one for over 20 years and knew the tailed beast inside and out. But once he fully transformed, he still went completely berserk. That kind of thing is just expected. But the Hidden Clouds village as Eight Tails Jinchuriki doesn't seem to have that problem. Keiichi said pointedly. He was mostly aiming the comment at Minato. Orochimaru was more of an afterthought. Now that you mention it, Minato had seen it, but hadn't truly processed it until Keiichi laid it out. The image became clearer in his mind. The Eight Tails had used its tail to catch A and pull him to safety. There's no way a rampaging Jinchuriki could do something like that. Could it be? There's only one explanation. After the seal was broken, the Eight Tails chose to help him. Incredible. That kid actually managed to get the Eight Tails on his side? Orochimaru, who had studied Jinchuriki extensively, wouldn't have been able to pull off the stunt of drugging Juki and releasing it undetected otherwise. So, all it took was a moment of thought, and the truth clicked into place. Chapter 149, The Strongest Spear? Already saw through it helping voluntarily. Minato looked surprised. Suddenly, something seemed to click, and a trace of realization appeared on his face. He must have figured something out. Keiichi understood why Minato didn't speak it aloud, probably because Orochimaru was present. But it didn't really matter. As long as they understood each other. At that moment, a serpent slithered over and coiled up on Orochimaru's shoulder. In the next instant, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes slightly and glanced over at the two of them. Since we've got nothing better to do, why don't we go check in on the Hidden Mist Village side? Looks like they're not done yet. Hidden Mist Village hasn't left? Keiichi was surprised. The Hidden Stones Village forces were already retreating, and those guys were still fighting? That's seriously overkill. Let's go see. The three moved swiftly. From the Land of Lightning to the northern coastline didn't take long at all. Before long, they arrived at a thick bank of mist. The Hidden Mist Village Nin were locked in combat with the Hidden Clouds Village Nin. They really hadn't left. To be more accurate, not all of them had left. Some had already boarded ships and were drifting out at sea, while a few ships remained docked near the coast. Orochimaru-sama, what's going on here? Minato was confused. Was Hidden Mist Village in fighting? In Hidden Mist Village, the elders and clan factions hold significant power. If the Mizukage is in good shape, it's manageable. But once the Mizukage is compromised, the village depends on whether those elders can unite. Keiichi offered a brief explanation. Clearly, those who stayed behind were likely the ones who refused to obey Yagura's orders. The main force of Hidden Mist Village had already withdrawn with him. So many clans are like this, chasing after even the tiniest gain, forgetting life and death in the process. Orochimaru remarked with a sigh. Hidden Mist Village's clans were like that, but Hidden Leaf Village wasn't entirely innocent either. However, what made Hidden Leaf Village different was the presence of clans like the Saratobi, Nara, and Yamanaka, who formed the backbone of the village. Even if some clans were problematic, they couldn't shake Hidden Leaf Village's foundation. Hidden Mist Village was another story. The Hazuki clan, the Yuki clan, the Kaguya clan. Each one with its own agenda. No wonder the village was a mess. Isn't there any way for clans to coexist peacefully? Minato frowned. He knew what Orochimaru was hinting at. The Uchiha. Wasn't this whole situation just a reflection of Hidden Leaf Village and the Uchiha? Of course there is. The old man, my teacher, has his flaws, but compared to Danzō, he's still more like the second Hokage. The village hasn't denied them opportunities. It's up to the Uchiha to see that. Orochimaru didn't bother hiding anything. He called it out by name, so what? It's not like there was an Uchiha standing right here. As for Keiichi, he was Tsunada's younger brother. You'd have to be crazy to think he'd side with the Uchiha. The police force? Minato caught on immediately. The Uchiha had seen their authority cut back again and again. The only real power they still clung to was the police force. If they gave that up. Another clan came to mind. The Hyuga clan. They didn't hold any excessive authority, yet they were doing just fine. The police force has long since become a burden to the Uchiha. It's a hot potato, anyone who holds on to it ends up isolated. Kleichi said flatly. Orochimaru raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Kleichi-kun, how do you figure? The police force isn't like a combat unit. Their job is to maintain law and order in the village. It's thankless, no one praises you for doing it well, and everyone complains if you screw up. Only an idiot would treat it like a prize. Kleichi said with some exasperation. He believed Tobirama Senju never intended to exterminate the Uchiha. But placing them in that role? That was definitely a setup to bait out the radicals. The problem was, the Uchiha took the bait, and after all these years, not a single one thought to give it up. Even Fugaku. Orochimaru thought for a moment, then said, I always looked at it from a power perspective. I never considered that. Their law enforcement mostly affects civilians. No wonder. Now it made sense. The Uchiha weren't exactly beloved by the villagers. Most civilians went out of their way to avoid them. Orochimaru thought of the Hokage election. With that kind of reputation, how could they ever hope to become Hokage? Kleichi, you really know your stuff. Orochimaru couldn't help but admire him. Minato remained silent on the side, still turning over ideas on how to resolve the Uchiha issue. But hearing all this, he began to understand. So you're saying the Uchiha should abandon the police force? Of course. They're a capable clan. Once they let go of the police force, someone else will take over, and sometimes the best way to show your value isn't by doing better, but by letting someone worse screw it up. Kleichi said matter-of-factly. Orochimaru couldn't help laughing. Exactly. Back when he worked with Danzō, the man always complained Orochimaru's research was too slow or inefficient. But the moment Orochimaru left, Root's entire research division fell into disarray. Minato had always been a prodigy, later becoming Jiraiya's student, and quickly rising to Jonin. His path had been smooth, but as a child of commoners, he still understood the village at ground level. However, he came from a civilian background, so he was still well aware of many things happening beneath the surface. The civilians really did hold a grudge against the Uchiha. The three of them were just speaking their minds in response to what they saw, so after a moment of silence, none of them pushed the topic any further. After a short while, the remaining Hidden Mist Village Nin began to retreat, but by then, the Hidden Stones Village Nin had already completed their withdrawal, and the main force of the Hidden Clouds Village Nin had turned around to strike at the Hidden Mist Village instead. However, now that they wanted to escape, how could they possibly get away? The Hidden Clouds Village Nin were still seething with rage. They couldn't defeat Hidden Stones Village Nin, but you must think you're harder to crush? Every last Hidden Mist Village Nin who remained was captured. Not a single one escaped. As for Yagura, he fled with the bulk of his forces at lightning speed, without the slightest intention of staying behind to save anyone. Kleichi and the others just watched from the sidelines. They didn't intervene. Tsuchidai-sama, it looks like there are some ninja hiding over there. No need to worry, they're from Hidden Leaf Village. Tsuchidai replied with a shake of his head. Troy hesitated for a moment, but in the end, followed Tsuchidai's judgment and didn't move to investigate the presence he'd sensed. The chakra over there was complex, almost like it had been released on purpose, as if it were waiting for them to walk right into it. Since Tsuchidai had already said not to bother, he didn't want to take the risk either. Tsuchidai, of course, knew exactly who it was. Kandakleichi. Minato no Mikeiji, their shadow clones, most likely, had already reached Hidden Clouds Village. And the other presence. If his guess was right, it was Orochimaru. By now, their clones should have arrived at Hidden Clouds Village. Hidden Clouds Village. Kleichi and Minato's shadow clones had finally arrived. Along the way, they'd run into other Hidden Clouds Village Nin. Some had been friendly, while many were hostile and looked ready to fight, but Kleichi resolved every encounter with reasoned persuasion. Take Tsuchidai, for example. So this is Hidden Clouds Village. It's my first time here. It's incredible. Minato murmured in awe. Unlike Hidden Leaf Village, many of the Hidden Clouds Village's buildings were perched atop mountains, surrounded by swirling mists and steep cliffs, dangerous, yet beautiful and grand. No wonder it was called Hidden Clouds Village. Kleichi fell silent for a moment before finally saying, the environment here is certainly harsh. To have grown so strong under these conditions, the third Raikage deserves all the credit. Although your praise is satisfying, I'll still take your life once we're on the battlefield. A deep voice rang out. And then, someone leapt down from a nearby mountaintop. His body was built like a tank, bulging with muscle, and his outfit was nearly identical to the corpse they'd sealed in the scroll. The third Raikage's son. The Kurita of this generation. Thanks for returning the body. Done sightseeing? Then hand over the corpse. Hidden Cloud's village isn't receiving guests right now. A's expression was dark. Hidden Cloud's village was still in the midst of a war, and countless matters needed attending to. They had no time to entertain two Hidden Lee village shinobi, especially not two who had, until recently, been fighting alongside Onoki to kill his father. Sure, they were returning the body now, but they were still enemies. There was no way he could just let that go. We came to Hidden Cloud's village for two reasons: 1, to return the body. 2, to clear up the misunderstanding. We were hired by Hidden Stone's village nin to take down the third Raikage. 20 million ryo. Kleichi directly threw Onoki under the bus. A fell silent. This kind of thing, hard to say if it was true or not. He was still turning it over in his mind when Kleichi pulled out an IOU, with black ink on white paper, bearing Onoki's signature. A stared at the paper for several seconds, then looked up at Kleichi. Onoki wanted to deal with the third Raikage. We just wanted to fight your Hidden Cloud's village in. Kleichi kept it simple. And? A frowned. Kleichi's words were direct and to the point, hard to argue with. But I wasn't one for subtlety, he preferred people to be upfront. If they had a goal, he wanted them to say it outright. Alright. Looks like you're still pissed. But, take a look at the body. Kleichi lifted the seal. The third Raikage's corpse appeared from the scroll, charred black, lifeless, no sign of vitality. A's fists clenched tight as he stared at it. His father. And the two men before him were among those responsible for his death. His eyes burned with hatred as he slowly said, "If you came here just to piss me off, then congratulations. You succeeded." With the appearance of the body, the number of Hidden Cloud's village nin in the area suddenly multiplied. Though they kept to the shadows, Kleichi and Minato could sense them clearly, encircling the mountain valley, prepared for a fight. Too bad. These two were only shadow clones. Even if they were killed. So what? It had been nothing more than impotent rage. If this is all the composure the fourth Raikage has, then your father really died in vain. I brought the body back to show you one thing. Kleichi raised a finger. At its tip, lightning chakra began to gather. ZZT, a familiar chakra flow. A recognizable lightning-style jutsu. Immediately, more than a dozen Anbu appeared from the surroundings. Though masked, it was clear from their reactions, they all believed this jutsu bore some connection to the hell stab used by the third Raikage. They thought Kleichi had somehow learned it. But, how could that be? There hadn't been enough time between the Raikage's death and the corpse's return. Hidden Cloud's village had been watching Kleichi's shadow clone the whole time. He never had a chance to contact any Yamanaka. Could it be? This guy knew the Yamanaka clan's secret jutsus? I couldn't make sense of it either. His eyes locked onto Kleichi, voice thick with anger. Impossible. There's no way you could have mastered the hell stab. The Seimata is in my possession. As long as I use it to drain the lightning armor's chakra and immediately disrupt it with sealing jutsus, your father wouldn't have been able to help with the retreat. Kleichi said calmly, I'm demonstrating this jutsu for one reason, to show you that I already seen through your father's move. Killing him wasn't as difficult as you think. I trembled with fury, but couldn't find a proper rebuttal. Unlike the other Hidden Cloud's village nin, he knew how to judge jutsus. After close observation, he realized that what Kleichi used wasn't the hell stab, but the principles were undeniably similar. Still, that alone didn't prove anything. The body was the real key. Just then, the commander of the Anbu arrived in a flicker. He examined the corpse thoroughly. Then slowly stood, silent for several seconds. Chapter 150, Trade Routes and the Grain Economy War. How is it? Raikage-sama, the injuries on the Third Lord's body aren't too deep. Judging by the marks, part of what he said is likely true. The captain of the Anbu spoke. The third Raikage's corpse was charred pitch black by his own black lightning, so there wasn't much left to examine, but the blade wounds stood out. If the other side truly had the same Ada, then it was entirely possible. I knew that Kanda Kleichi did indeed have the same Ada. So, he wasn't lying. Could he really have taken down his father alone? Just as he was deep in thought, he saw Minato forming hand seals on the side. I didn't know much about sealing jutsu, but the Anbu captain did. He quietly warned, that's a Hidden Leaf village sealing jutsu. It interferes with chakra. Fine. I believe you had the ability to kill my father. But do you really expect me to feel grateful to you for that? Of course not. I only brought it up so you wouldn't take your revenge out on the wrong people. But if you really want to fight, the battlefield's always open. Just think it through carefully, not every time will there be a Raikage willing to stay behind and cover the retreat. Kleichi didn't back down in the slightest. He respected the third Raikage and even admired the fourth's decisiveness, but when it came to Hidden Cloud's village, if you didn't show your fists, they'd only think you were weak. Like when they kidnapped Kushina. And later, Hinata. You. A's face darkened with fury. He almost exploded on the spot, but then his father's words echoed in his mind, don't be impulsive. Stay calm. He took a deep breath, forced down the rage in his chest, and said, don't worry. In Hidden Cloud's village, we call things what they are. I know exactly who deserves my grudge. Good. I hope we'll have a chance to cooperate in the future. Humphrey. That chance will never come. A replied coldly. But just then, the Anbu captain whispered something into his ear. A's face turned bright red. He immediately shot a glare of pure fury at the Anbu captain. But after a long moment, the corner of his mouth twitched, and he forced out a painfully twisted smile. I hear you're good at medical ninjutsu. Would you be willing to help us here in Hidden Cloud's village? At first, a thought swallowing his pride would be the hardest thing. But after saying the first sentence, he realized it wasn't so bad. Compared to his pride, the lives of his men were clearly more important. Pride didn't matter. He didn't just change his tone, he even bowed slightly to Kyoichi and Minato, as if he'd completely forgotten they were part of the group that had ganged up on his father. It wasn't tolerance, it was simply a matter of principle. Like Kyoichi had said, the primary responsibility for the attack on the third Raikage clearly lay with Onoki. Kyoichi and Minato had merely gone with the flow. This is just a shadow clone. Kyoichi was surprised. He'd only said something polite out of formality. He hadn't expected the Hidden Clouds village to actually express interest in cooperation. But then he remembered, in the anime, Tsunade and Shizune were once invited by A when they were near the Land of Lightning. The situation was different, but A really was the kind of man who could bow his head for the sake of his subordinates. Minato remained silent. Honestly, he'd thought walking away without a fight was the best-case scenario. He never imagined that not only would they avoid a beating, but they'd even end up in talks with Hidden Cloud's village. The outcome? He was genuinely stunned. Can't your real body come? If you're worried I'll do something, I'm willing to be held hostage in exchange. Raikage-sama. If you don't object, we'll proceed on these terms. If you have other conditions, feel free to bring them up. Compensation will absolutely not be an issue. A spoke decisively. Kyoichi thought for a moment, then said, I'm fine with providing medical aid. My real body doesn't need to come. As for conditions, I want the Land of Lightning to repair the roads and ensure the safety of merchants from the Land of Fire and Hidden Leaf Village. Huh? That's your condition? He looked surprised. Honestly, he didn't get it. Because clearing bandits and maintaining infrastructure were internal affairs of the Land of Lightning. Even without Hidden Leaf Village's request, they were things he would have done anyway. As for merchants, Land of Fire merchants usually preferred going to the Land of Hot Water. Goods would be routed through there before reaching the Land of Lightning. The Land of Fire merchants were generally too lazy to come here directly. What was the point? He was genuinely confused. After some hesitation, the blunt Raikage, who didn't want to take advantage, awkwardly asked, Can I ask why? Because that condition. The Anbu captain face-palmed in silence. They've already named such a modest condition, how are you still asking why? What if he rethinks it and asks for more? But since O had already said it, the captain couldn't stop him now. Well, let's just say I don't want middlemen skimming off the profits. Anything beyond that comes with a fee. Kyoichi smiled. The Land of Lightning wasn't exactly blessed with fertile land. Otherwise, Hidden Cloud's village wouldn't have been built up in the mountains. It's not that they didn't want to build on flatlands, but the terrain simply didn't allow it. Of course. This did lead to the Hidden Cloud's village men climbing mountains every day, which naturally built their stamina. Their physical prowess was stronger than that of most other villages. However, their local specialties were rare in the Land of Fire. First, alcohol. The Land of Lightning had many hot springs and mountains. The terrain and water quality were distinct from other countries. Their locally brewed sake tasted far better than anything in the Land of Fire and was considered a luxury. Second, beef. Their highland cattle produced beef with a price far beyond that of other regions. More importantly, even if you had money, you might not be able to buy it. And that was just the stuff you could buy from the Land of Lightning. The real key was selling your own goods into their market, which tied into one of Kyoichi's future plans. If you insist, then fine. Oh hesitated. But in the end, he nodded. Though he didn't understand what Kyoichi was aiming for, no matter how he looked at it, accepting this condition didn't seem to harm the Land of Lightning in any way. I don't know medical ninjutsu. To avoid misunderstandings, I'll go explain the situation to the others, don't want them to worry. Of course. Thank you both for coming. I gave a light bow. Minato formed a hand seal and dispelled his shadow clone. At the border of the Land of Lightning, Kyoichi, Minato, and Orochimaru had just finished watching Hidden Mist Village's drama unfold. Now, they were walking along the coast toward the land of hot water. Halfway there, Minato suddenly paused, a strange look appearing on his face. Your clone's feedback? Orochimaru sensed the fluctuation in chakra and guessed the clone had returned its memories. But why was there only one? Yeah. The body was sent back. The Hidden Clouds village made it clear they wouldn't blame Hidden Leaf village for the third Raikage's death. They even asked Kyoichi for help treating their wounded. Minato slowly explained the situation. Kyoichi and Orochimaru listened attentively. After all, Kyoichi's own shadow clone hadn't dispelled yet, so he had no idea what had transpired. Was there a deeper meaning behind the condition? Orochimaru frowned. He was smart, but not omniscient. He couldn't figure out why Kyoichi had made such a low-demand request. It seemed like a waste. But Kyoichi understood immediately. After all, it was his own plan, how could he not? Kyoichi, what's your real reasoning? Minato asked directly. He knew Kyoichi always had a purpose. He wouldn't ask for something like that without a hidden agenda. It ties into a jutsu I want to develop. If it succeeds, Hidden Leaf Village will never lack medicinal herbs, grain, or vegetables again. You're researching wood style? Orochimaru's eyes lit up. Herbs, grain, vegetables, all were plants. He instantly thought of his own notes on wood style. You could call it that, but I think it's more accurate to say it's grass release. I'm not aiming for power, just for plant growth. The weaker the jutsu, the lower the chakra requirements. Kyoichi explained. What he wanted to recreate was Kase Matsuri Mogi's green jutsu. Orochimaru fell deep into thought. Wood-style chakra did have plant growth effects. If it worked, it could allow rapid cultivation of crops, herbs, vegetables. Kyoichi's plan was to mass-produce them and export them abroad. There was definitely something deeper here, but Orochimaru had little background in economics. No matter how much he thought, he couldn't quite see the full picture. He frowned and asked, if you're growing medicine and food, then selling it to the Land of Lightning. Wouldn't that still benefit them? Just because something benefits the other side doesn't mean it's a bad move. We use ninjutsu to create value. We make money, feed people at home and abroad, and besides, at this point, Kyoichi extended a hand and activated a chakra sensory jutsu. Once he confirmed the area was safe, he continued, the Land of Lightning is full of mountains. Some valleys are even struck with lightning year-round. There's little arable land. If our crops are plentiful and cheap, and trade goes on long enough, who's going to keep farming in their own country? Ah! Orochimaru's eyes lit up. That flash of insight finally clicked. Grain. During war, ninja eat soldier pills to stave off hunger, but those are made from medicinal ingredients and grain. Their high price stems from the value of the raw materials. If Hidden Leaf Village controlled that production, they really could dominate the Land of Lightning's food supply. However, letting those bandit-like Hidden Clouds village nin stay well-fed might not be such a good thing. He thought for a moment and asked, Kyoichi-kun, that can't be all, right? Of course not. The Land of Lightning is famous for its cattle. Once we open trade routes, we'll import their cattle and beef. When demand rises, more people will raise cattle, and when you raise cattle, someone's gotta grow the grass. Kyoichi laid out his simple idea. Nothing complex, just leftovers from what business tycoons had already figured out in his past life. But in the ninja world, it was novel. At least, Orochimaru had never considered it. He licked his lips and nodded. It's all clear now. It's a cycle. Unless Hidden Clouds Village realizes it from the start, they'll slowly fall into the trap. Savage. This was sharper than any blade. It wasn't war, but it might as well have been. If you controlled the food supply, would the Hidden Clouds Village dare to make a move? The only prerequisite, Kyoichi added, is that we can hold our own against Hidden Clouds Village. Otherwise, they'll just go to war and take what they want. So in the end, your fists still need to be strong.